Everybody, hold on. Let me know when we're back, y'all. I'm coming back. I'm coming back, I promise. Welcome back, everybody. My goodness gracious. Everybody refresh. Yeah. I'll get everything back up and running. But welcome, everybody. Oh my god. Load backup data. I don't wanna. Please select one of these files instead. What do you mean? Okay. Damn. Anyway, welcome. Y'all, I don't know. My computer froze. It didn't give me the blue screen like it was before. It just froze. So, I don't know. My computer from what the technician said when I brought it in last, my computer is fine. There should be nothing. So, either it got too warm or I don't know, but my computer froze. So, give me just 1 second to get everything reset up. But welcome back everybody. My goodness. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. There we go. I'm also gonna snooze the ads. Shoppers are back. Welcome, everybody. You know what? Actually, refresh everyone. Make sure you refresh. What I'm gonna do, y'all, is I'll run the ads real quick. Check your logs, timestamp associated. Yeah, I'll check my logs real quick. Refresh everybody. I'm gonna get my stuff. I'll run the ads while I'm getting my stuff up and running. So again, raiders, damn, thank you so much for the raid and sorry for the sudden crash. But let me fix my stuff. Let me get everything back up. Running a stream is kind of nuts. There's just so many things going on, and there's so many programs you have to have open. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. Let me get back into my stuff. There we go. Let me go to my studio mode. There we go. But welcome back, everybody. Sorry about the crash. It happens. It was a blank shout out. Interesting. For Jam? Then I'll do a proper shout out this time. Bam! JK. No, it says that the full shout out went through. It won't let me make another one. Drawing. There we go. All right, everything should be good here. I am going to turn off the worm channel point thing just so I don't have to have one more program open. Let me turn this off. Just turn off a worm. Are we back, everybody? Think so. There we go. Is the world ending? No, no. It just says shout out was given to empty. Oh, it could just be that it's just not registering now. But oops. Whoops. Let me turn that off. Anyway, I'm back. There's a lot of things that are going to take a couple seconds to get back together. But for now, everything should be good. Having so many apps open, I also need to update OBS. Let me skip. I'm back. I've now learned that there's Tylenol with caffeine in it. Really? What the heck? That's so strange. Ad starts in 1 minute. Hold on. Is an ad running for y'all? Because it just says ad starts in 1 hour. Oh, the ads are finished. I was confused. I was like, what's happening? JK. All right. Everything should be fine. I don't know why the viewer attack thing is up there. Just kind of, let me refresh viewer attack. Let me go to studio mode again. Redeems. There we go. Refresh. Hopefully that worked. There we go. Y'all, I can't with crashes. Why is it up there? Also, my chat's not showing either. There's so many things that are kind of gone nutty. Oh my goodness gracious. I just want things to work for once, y'all. I just want things to work for once. I'm just trying to do our critique. There we go. Turn my music up a little smidge. There we go. Damn, everything is just trying to catch up. But welcome back, everybody. Okay, ads. No, yeah. So it looks like the ad timer is working fine. Everything's good. I just got confused because it's in the same spot that I was like, is it right? The ads just went by so quickly. I think it's because I'm so focused on other stuff. All right, and now let me see if I can't find my chat box and refresh that because it's not showing that you guys are chatting anything. And that's strange. Now I have to find where it is. Games, record, move, alerts. Where even is my is that in the scene or is it I have so many nested scenes that I'm like, which one's where? Okay. It must be in the scene. So let me stay here. Anyway, y'all, thanks so much for waiting and vibing. Let me do an example chat. Blah 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 blah. Nope. Okay. Y'all, there it is. There it goes. Excellent. All right. I think everything's good. As long as you can hear the music, you hear me. I think we're halfway there. We're halfway there. Let me keep my layers over here so you guys can at least see what I'm kind of working on. But thank you so much for the raid again. If you need to go take care of yourself, please do. But for now, we'll keep going with what we were doing. Well, actually, real quick, let me look at the crash log, see what the fuck was happening, because I was just talking and I don't know what happened. Is viewer attack in the scene? Because I refreshed it. Let's draw. No, I don't know. I don't know. Might be in alerts. No. Oh my god. Jeez. I see. I see. Just trying to scare the crap out of me. Real shoppers stick through the free fresh. Yeah. Thank you. I have a pic I could show. It's an old one. Yeah, here. Feel free to send the link in the chat. By all means. Let me file save as. Okay. So we're going to go back into this critique. Thanks for waiting. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Ugh. There we go. Awesome. Hell yeah. It says the content's no longer available. If you resend the image in Discord and then just copy the link to that image that you sent, that should be up to date and refresh. Okay, so back into what we were talking about, Mockwide. So basically simplifying the features, chibifying the features. I don't want to forget the details that are on the face here. I'm just going to be moving this up to again adjust how our features are being read. We want the nose to be identifiable, but we might just want to keep it simple. We want the mouth to be large and take up some room. Hi there, how are you, Silver? If I had to take a guess, your memory maxed out. That's very strange though, because oh, thank you for reminding me. Let me go back into event viewer. And because with I have 32 gigs of RAM, and with everything going right now, I'm not even making it to 40%. And CPU is like under 15%. So let me go to my event viewer. Let me double check. Let me double check. Event viewer. Let me see. Let me see. Tell me. Ooh. Oh, cute. Oh, I love the colors. Hold on. Event viewer can wait. Let me show the link that was sent. Technology problems are always frustrating. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I wonder if the chatters can use the command, which so you cannot use any mass commands, but you can do exclamation point dance just to control your chatter. Uh, This image is massive. Oh, cool. Oh. Just a little bit of the smile there. Oh, so cute. Look at that sweater. Look at that cardigan. I love the colors you used. Oh my god. I see too you've got the tails of your these are cute. Oh my goodness. And you said you finished this up today? Oh, I love that. Oh, it's so cute. This is something I would wear for real. Something I would wear for real. Damn. Hell yeah, weaving all them in. Damn. Hell yeah. Ooh, I love it. This is one of my favorite color schemes. These are so cute. It's been done for a while, but just pesky. Yeah, the pesky little ends. Oh my god. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. Also, I like your pop socket. Does it have is it just like see-through with little bits in it? Mine has liquid in it and will like move around. It's got like glitter and stuff. I love this. It's so fucking cute. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Ugh. No pattern. Literally just made enough squares to make a cardigan. Yeah, and then just like the edges. That's cool. Oh my god. That's so exciting. Thank you so much. All right, so now here we have this tiny little black pop socket with the flowers. Oh, cute. Here's what we had before. Here's what we have after. We're kind of getting into when they say that there's like an emote style, there is, and it's really just because simplicity ends up working really well for emotes. Like we were talking before, the yeah, 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 hell yeah. Um, hell yeah, we love the hype. I love seeing what people are doing and making. It's so cool. Y'all are so cool. What the heck? All right, I'm also going to oops. I'm going to merge these. No, you. Okay, sure. I'll take it. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. Let me make the mouth bigger. But yeah, if you guys ever seen that there's a hi small comfy cryptid, if you ever think that there's a style with emotes, there definitely is. And obviously too, there's a lot of people that are capitalizing off of emotes that are very popular, so they'll try to replicate that style. But really the style has come across come about because of legibility, needing to be able to be seen as a small little thing. Let me turn this music down a smidge. Oh, yeah, there we go. Very sleepy. I'm gonna pop away now, leave up to lurk. Thank you so much, and thanks again for the raid. I really appreciate it. Get some sleep. Sleep. So yeah, so that if you've ever noticed that about emotes, it is very much for a reason. I'm actually going to minimize how big this tongue is, so it makes our mouth look even bigger. There will be it'll be super super easy to see the different elements of this design, and it'll just make it way more legible. This one is more of an extreme change than the ones that we've done prior. But really, the for an emote, you'll want it to be as simplified as possible. So now we're referencing this original art as like a design. So for example, I do recommend drawing your emote out like you usually would, with all of the complicated detail, with all of the intricate shapes, and then trying again and simplifying those shapes. And you'll find that you'll learn from the first time you drew it. Just like with mine, I had to draw it out first and then developed off of it from there. You know what I mean? So again, our first attempt is not a wasted attempt. We learned a lot doing this first one. So now doing the second one, we can just do it even stronger. So aside from this simplification of shape, our mouth is larger. We don't have a nose, but I personally like including them. Looks like some of the work that I did to the eyes was lost in the crash. So let me re-establish. We want the lower line of the eyes to kind of follow the same arc. So I'm just gonna do that. It follows this cheek here. And then we were gonna want the top of our eyes to be way more open, way more round, and this will even give us a more exaggerated fear. So our expression is even more intense. I like the idea of having two little simple hands holding the Bible. Absolutely, yeah. So I introduced the shoulders too quickly. I figured I should just focus on the face first. Um, but having a little bit of a shoulder and having at least one hand will help this look less like a floating book and more like it is being interacted with by the character. Let me cut it out and just focus on the character. So now I'm gonna just kind of frame the shape a little bit more, get our hair in like a very we have this very fine strand right here, which isn't a problem necessarily because the hair is super dark. We can get away with the silhouette, having a little bit of deviation from it, but it is going to be mostly covered up by that book. So we're going to just want to make sure that everything is as simply shaped as possible. I'm going to like round out, smooth out this hair and really allow the horns to break out of that. So I'm going to keep moving this a little lower because we have a lot of hair. We don't need so much of like the shoulder torso here, and we especially don't need all of this dark hair. So if we want to maintain these horns being more prominent, then that is just the exchange we make. We just move this character further down. I'm gonna exaggerate their horns a little bit so that they are easier to see. I won't forget to re-add the detail. In fact, this horn, probably because of space, was a little bit chopped, so we're going to have it match a little bit closer to this side, get them kind of evened out. Not going for perfect. I don't want to spend too much time. We have quite a few folks to go through. But just kind of get these evened out. And now we have a bit more room to play with. And now let me grab the horn art and whoops. There we go. Hold on. Grab the horn art and reintroduce that red gradient to it so I don't forget. And that red is also a really nice choice because it'll make those a lot more visible. Keep in mind that stuff will be viewed in dark mode and in light mode. There is a dark mode and a light mode for Twitch's interface. So I recommend making a small pointing right at them, making a small, like using an emote converter to get the different emote sizes and testing them out either in a Discord server, because that's a really good way to test out some of the emotes to see if they're legible. Um, or test them out, on a canvas that has like dark gray, almost black and white, just to see if you are able to see it well. So now we can see here that we've gone from this to this. Everything is a little bit more legible, but we're still trying to make sure that this character's design isn't lost. I'm going to add a nose real quick after I get my eyes figured out. Again, getting rid of as much small detail as possible because it at the end of the day won't be legible anyway. We won't be able to see it. It won't be able to be read from a distance. So the less you have in like really tiny detail, the easier it'll be to see everything else. But we can maintain these little red lines because the character's design clearly depends on them. But let me make them thicker. And again, we're all about making it easier to read. Everything just needs to be a lot easier to see from a distance. I'll reintroduce that hair in a second because that is an important design element. We also have these eyebrows. Again, we're going to want to make them be as legible from a distance as possible. So let me just start with a clean slate here. We have this third eye from this character, which is really interesting. I like that design choice. So let me go through here, get our eyes looking a little bit more even. There we go. And I think we don't want to make it not look like a fearful expression, but we do want to, again, simplify. And again, I don't have a reference for the original character, so I just want to, try to recreate these details as best I can. And if we want these eyelashes big, chunky, big chunky, the not the eyelash, the eyebrow, big chunky, easy to see, very easy to tell from a distance that it's an eyebrow. Hi there, Vic, how are you? Eyebrow, eyebrow. And now again, we'll make this big shape. It is really just simplicity. Hi. Okay, so now we have this character. We might even be able to lift these brows up, but we don't want them to be so far up that they conflict with the horns and some other stuff. But we do want this surprised expression. So that's what I'm going for real quick. Gonna have to like fix some. Let me take off my smoothing so I can do this a little faster. Again, this is really just an example of some of the changes you can make. And again, this one is way more of a style shift than what I like to do typically with critiques because my goal isn't to take people's style and completely change it. But for emotes, it is so incredibly important to keep things really, really simple. So it's almost necessary to make really drastic changes in order to make sure that it can be seen. I've been listening to the Mario Galaxy soundtrack for the last hour. That is such a incredible soundtrack. I love the Mario Galaxy soundtrack. All right, so we have some pretty complex shapes here. Very fine, delicate shapes. We are going to simplify them on this character's face so that we can ensure that, again, legibility, legibility, legibility. So let me make a mask on this layer, and I will just do, let me see here, a dot here, and a line going up over the horns. So now you can still see that there's a design element there, but instead of having this small loop, we've made it a red dot. Still reminiscent of the character that we're trying to represent, but a little bit easier to see. I'm gonna take a look at the reference again. All right, we have three on the cheek, some that kind of go towards the chin, one in the middle, and one that goes up towards the eyes. So now I'm gonna re-employ my technique. We're gonna try to keep these centered on the eye, some at the corner of the mouth, and some down closer to the chin. And instead of sharp angles, again, I'm gonna make it round. Round. Super cool. Welcome in. Here, here. Also following the curve of the face here and here. Just kind of maintaining this character's design. Don't want to get rid of too much of that. And now that we have, also here, let me get like a nose of some sort. Kind of, you know, I personally really like noses, so I'm gonna do the little bit of a like a little anime nose. First off, the whole aesthetic's so great. Secondly, hello. Oh my goodness, you're another capsule cutie. Hell yeah, nice to meet you. Thanks so much for the follow. What the heck? What the freak? I might even make this color darker. So now we have a little dark color, a little highlight, and this character has a little nose. Now let me move it over aside a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now you can see that we have it's a lot more legible. Our character has, still maintaining the design of this character. Again, I don't want to sacrifice this character's design, but the complicated designs are definitely harder to make emotes of. And one last thing is I would like to reintroduce the blush for this character. So let me use the same clip that I used for these red pieces here. And instead of a gradient, I am going to use a soft color and make a hard edge for it. So something like this. I could do a gradient because, if it's too dark and is very confusing to look at with these lines, a soft blush might be better for us. So let me try that instead. But again, the more gradient you have, the more it can blend in with other things. Yeah, so this gradient ends up working for this design. I might even try to add a little bit of like a bottom lip to this character. That just further adds a little bit of detail. Though I don't know if this is a masculine or feminine character. I'm just going to include this little lip as like a little bit of extra, but that is, obviously individual to this person. The last thing that we have lost from our original work is the hair that came in front of the face. And so now I think we can pay attention to that. So it had these dark red tips. I'm going to just frame the face a little nicer with our hair and make sure that it is not conflicting with any of the design elements inside. So now I've brought that out a little farther, and I'm gonna have this curl up. It's not in front of our mouth at all. It's not coming close to our mouth, but now you have this little sweep here that shows us that that character's hair is shaped that way. And I'll do it on the opposite side just to kind of mirror it since the character has that hair on both ends, on both sides. And I'm going to take a nice dark red that they had before, but I'm going to make it a little bit more vibrant. So you can tell that it's not the same red as the red that's on the face, but it is still very clearly a darker red. I'm going to just make it like this. And I'm going to just imply that it's got a little bit of wave to it in the color, but not so much that it's distracting. Same thing over here. We're just going to duplicate that same treatment. And now it's like this character has these red tips. And we don't see that at the bottom, so we don't have to worry about that. And now one thing too is adding outlines. We're going to need thick outlines around the borders of things. So like the side of the face should have a nice thick outline. The border of the hair and everything inside should be left with a thinner line. So the outside of the head, it'll also kind of clean up some of our edges here, redefine some of our silhouette. There's the edge. And then I'm going to do a slightly smaller, but still dark outline here. Again, keeping away from too much fine line art. And if this is too light of a color, we can always come back, darken it up, but still meaning maintaining this face. We want the face to be what we're looking at most. And now, like I started at the beginning, I'll introduce those shoulders. I don't know what this character's outfit colors are, so I'm just going to assume, I'm just going to infer. We're gonna have some sort of shoulders here. Um, and if there is a neck, I'm gonna go for a color that's way darker, just so that, not like so dark that it doesn't look like it's the same like skin tone, but dark enough that it's set away from our character. We're gonna make a, just make a little neckline here. Again, have no idea what this character's design is. Might be a little too dark, this color. So let me try. Yuck. There we go. But again, very few gradients, just really trying to avoid making too many problems in terms of like clarity. And again, you've heard me beat that thing, beat the same two sentences to death. So we're just gonna, wah, wah, wow, beautiful red coat. And now we have our book. I think the hands coming up to hold the book is a wise idea. Having this character's face almost be covered by this book as if they are shielding themselves, but we don't want to cover so much of the character that you can't tell what's happening. So let me try to even out this book a little bit more. One of the things too is we have a conflict with the character having black eyes or black sclera, which are a very important design feature, and then this book having really thick black outlines. So I'm gonna try to clean these up, and it might be that our book should get something like a really dark brown outline instead, just to further, separate the book from the character. Another thing that I see done often in emotes is that a white outline will be put around an item or a piece of the character just to further separate it from what's behind it. You can do that as well. But if you notice that areas like the side of the face are getting kind of lost, that might not be the best. So I would try changing the color of the line art just a little bit to see if that's a little bit better towards what you were trying to achieve. And also thinning the line art. Text is really difficult to convey. So we just want this to be as simple as possible. We want this to be simple as possible and as few colors as possible. We're just really getting the shape of this book back together, and we'll go for making sure that it's legible as a holy book of some sort. Regardless, we don't need text on it. We can really just show. I think you can trust that your audience will be able to see the iconography and will be able to understand. You could put a little bit of flair on it if you wanted to, but this is really, I think, all the detail you need for people to be able to tell that it is a book. And then the hands, very, very chunky, rounded hands. really as few features as possible on the hands. Um, you know, clearly a holy karate, absolutely, yeah. So as few details as possible. We might have to, position it so that it's not competing with certain parts of the face right here, making sure that it's separated from the face. You can do some line. I like to use, line art that is different colors so that it's not taking away from the rest. And let me just do really basic, not trying to go for anything wild. And sometimes that's all you need. You could put another hand on the other side, but it might not be necessary. And here we'll go for like a slightly lighter red just to show that it's the sleeve in front. We're not going for anything crazy. And I think what I might also do is bring some of the hair in front so that we don't have so much of this big red shoulder here, but you can still see that it's this character's hair. A little bit less, you know, a little bit less of that bright red there. Really is at some point just really just comes to your personal style. But yeah, and then, you can do various things as well. So we have, for example, this hand and book in the foreground. Let me grab this. Oops. Hold on. Copy. Get rid of. Paste. So we have the hand and the book in the foreground, and then we have our character in the background. So another thing that we might be able to do, uh, aside from like positioning it, you can also if it's separate, you can always animate it a little bit after too. But one of the things that you can do is to further separate. This is a lot of dark colors against light colors, but you can also do something like an overlay layer or a multiply layer and just darken a little bit at the bottom just to further push the arm away from the body. So I'm going to do a multiply layer at 50. I'm going to use soft brush. Again, I'm really trying to avoid making it muddy, but I am trying to make contrast and something like that. Obviously, you don't have to use black. You could use something like blue or even red, like a red color, darker. And we're just further pushing. Again, this is a little bit exaggerated. It's not as polished, but we're really just pushing this arm away from this body. So that's before, after. We're just adding a little bit more contrast. And from a distance, this is now a lot more legible than it was before. So let me get this grouped together, save, and let me bring the canvas out so we can put them next to each other. All right, so, oops, whoops, there we go. So now we have the, hi there, Golden. Hi, 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 I'm a little butterfly. Hi. Hi, hi. Hi there. All right, so we have on the right, let me actually just take the text here from this one, boink, and move that over here. I wonder if it's just too small. Oh, it's too large. All right, so we have the new one over here and the old one over here. Let me move this out of the way. Wonderful. So now you can kind of see that we've made this a lot more simplified in terms of color. We've simplified it in terms of shape. And we've also now been given the benefit of adding more detail than we had before in this original. We have an arm now, but it's still, again, focused on contrast. You can see it, you can tell from a distance that it's a hand. And now these are both much more, it's much more legible this way. Obviously, there's things we could do with the color of the book. Might be best to make it like blue instead of brown, just so it's further distanced from being red. But again, these are all choices that can be made if you're actually doing this for your own. So see how the blue is a little bit different. Again, you'd have probably a lighter blue going on, but that further separates that color from the colors that are prominent in our characters, so they stand out a bit more than our brown, or it would be a way lighter color, just to, way lighter brown just to further, but then that comes into, you know, conflicting with the face, the skin color and stuff like that. So yeah, we've still maintained this character's expression, um, and it's one of shock, one of fear, and now we've even been able to add more detail by simplifying the rest of it. So yeah, and I might even add a little bit of a just real quick, add a little bit of a shine to this character's eyes because the shine will be kind of nice to include. Oops, my so like a little bit of an eye shine, eye shine, eye shine, and now that character's eyes stand out even more. Really simple change, but so yeah, really just trying to maintain this really awesome expression that the artist made originally, and just make it legible as a really tiny emote. So yeah, we'll move right into the next one from this one, but thank you so much to Squid for submitting this emote. And I will, again, for anybody that participates today, I will be sending these along to you afterwards via most likely Discord, but sometimes I'll reach out via Twitter. So keep your eye out for those. But let me open up the next one. I hope you guys have been doing okay. This is a lot of yapping, but I really enjoyed giving critique. So if anybody ever has any questions, let me know. Let me go into. There we go. All right, this one is done. The next one is from our pal Lord Dragonia, and Dre actually submitted a figure, a minifigure from I believe Warhammer, which is really exciting. I have never painted a mini, but I have painted sculptures, so I will apply my sculpture experience to the minis. Though I understand that there are things about miniature painting that I don't know because minis sometimes have their own rules, so take some of this with a grain of salt. Just understand that I'm using a sculpture perspective, not necessarily a minifig perspective. I'll do my best. Little goobers walking on the bottom of the screen synced with the music. Oh hell yeah! They've got such a chill vibe. Let me go to this. So this is a minifig painted by Lord Dragonia. Military hardware. Hell yeah! Let me take a sip of my water. Magua. So here, there are some really nice color choices here. I know the minis typically come either primed in white or gray. So there are some really nice, solid choices here. Also, too, they can be incredibly varied. I know that there tend to be standards, like, there's a lot about Warhammer that I don't know if this even is Warhammer. There's just very specific lore and armies and preferences that kinda come, so I won't make commentary on, like, the color choice specifically, simply because it might have deeper meaning than I have knowledge to give about it, but the green reads as a very military-oriented color. It's an army green kind of vibe, so that already gives us the, aside from it looking like a tank, feeling like a tank, being a tank, it already reads more military because we've added this specific shade of green and we've added elements of gold that gives us a little bit more of like a wealthier vibe instead of just the gunmetal colors, the silver. These accents of gold give us a little bit more of a luxury and are a warm point of interest. They look more decorative rather than utilitarian, like the weapons on this piece might look. Let me make a brighter color. Pink under yellow makes the yellow pop without needing. I've heard that about red as well. Um, Reminds me of some British World War One Ramboid tanks. Yeah, this is a really cool sculpt. The details aren't being lost. Dre has meticulously uh separated out these elements here. The tread, even the tread on the tanks, have been meticulously made into this weathered gunmetal silver so that you can really see these mechanical elements. So these have been very meticulously separated out and painted to be their own unique color. And it just helps us see a bit more of the structure and the machinery of this tank. So that's really cool. It even looks like this can rotate. This actually looks like it might be able to rotate, which is really cool. I don't know how much of this figure can be separated easily, but it looks like there's several rotating elements, and that's really cool. That just means that you can pose it in a really fun way. It also makes it a little easier for you to paint in all those nooks and crannies. Um, yeah, so for I guess for this, my only critique would be then now adding depth. We have a really cool base layer that we've established. So we've clearly brought contrast by having not only a slightly more metallic paint here on the machinery, but this nice solid uh green, this army green. And I can see too that it looks like Dre has already put some weathering washing on it. This looks like there's some brown paint here, or maybe like even red that has been brought in to make this green a little bit more muted. If you want paints to, if you want a color to be muted, if you can't already mix that color, layering colors, a lot of these airbrush paints tend to be very thin. So layering colors over or under one another can give you a very specific effect. So by adding hints of red or brown over top of something like a green or a blue, you're taking the primary, you're taking the complementary of your original color. So green's complementary on the color wheel is red, which is also a choice that Dre made for this figure. The figure is red, which makes them much easier to see back here, and just gives them a lot more interest. Even very delicately painting out this detail on their shoulder. I believe it's a pauldron. Pardon me, I don't know armor so well. I don't know my armor so good. But let me make a quick color wheel. So we have our primary colors, red, yellow, blue. That's actually not yellow enough. There we go. And then you of course fill in the blanks with what they mix together. And red and green are opposite blue and orange. So if you have a brown that leans more towards red or towards orange and put it over top of your green or your blue, you can mute it and make it a little bit less vibrant, and that will make it also look a little bit more realistic. Hyper pop vibrant colors tend to be a little bit more difficult to make look real unless you're doing something that's meant to look like it's been spray painted or is neon, so my only critique here for this would be applying washes and dry brushes, things that are very common in sculpture and in minis. um, so I would recommend taking, depending on the tone you wanted, uh, maybe something that's quite minty, soft, like but maybe a little bit warmer, um, and a little bit gray. And it's going to be difficult to kind of convey a dry brush, but I'll do my best. Oh, okay. So taking a dry brush, and what dry brushing does is you're basically putting paint on your brush and wiping most of it away, and then you're brushing it very lightly so you're just catching the edges. So if I just take this is my color here. This this almost mint, warm mint color, and I'm going to try my best to simulate what it would look like. It's very difficult, but it'll just take these edges and add a little bit of warmth to them, add a little bit of depth, just it just barely catches those edges and brings out the detail in a really interesting way. Again, just going over some of the pieces of the geometry on this just to, bring it out. But just doing a dry brush of this nice light green on some of the aspects. And if I turn that off, even just as like a pseudo, like just kind of drawing on top, not able to really capture what it would look like on the mini. We're already, capturing those edges, giving it a little bit more of a style. And you can also add some texture to this too. A little bit of grittiness just because you have dry brushed over top of it. And also now you can also take some varied colors. So if you wanted to take a little bit of like a sandy color and put that on some of the areas, you can see that the sandiness, that sandy color adds a little bit more warmth in there. Kind of gives you a little bit of variety as well. Maybe the paint is newer in some areas than it is in others. And if you wanted to take some of your silver metallic paint and really just get the very edges of this, let me use a different brush. You can then make it look like your paint has been chipped away on certain spots. So that's also an option, and the metallic nature of it will make it look like the metal is showing underneath. For props, to add a metal burnish, use product called, yeah, Rub and Buff is very good at making it very metallic with very little effort. You just have to rub and buff it. So yeah, so before, after, just gives us a little bit of variety. And then again, a wash. So I know that different people tend to have different makeups for their wash. But basically, the goal now that we've brought out the highlights of this vehicle, we want to bring out the lowlights of this vehicle as well. Again, different artists will have different mixtures. So sometimes they will use an oil based paint and get it really liquidy with some spirits to get into all the cracks. Excuse you. A lot of just pay attention to your paints. Oils can go on top of acrylic paints, but acrylics cannot go on top of oil. So be sure that if you're using one type of paint with a different makeup than another, be careful which way you're layering them. Acrylic can go under because acrylic is plastic. That's what acrylic means. It is a type of plastic. So you can put the oil on top of it, but you can't put it on top of oil. It'll flake off. It'll be really nasty. Sometimes it'll even just like peel when you're painting. Excuse you. So yeah, just keep that in mind, but sometimes as a finisher, I recommend looking on YouTube at Studson Studio. He does miniatures made out of, like, trash. He'll do a lot of, like, dioramas and fun things, and he has an oil-based mixture. I also I believe it was oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember, Luke Townsend, I believe. Let me go to YouTube. Luke Townsend does dioramas and miniatures. He's Australian, not like that matters, but Luke Towan. Luke Towan. There we go. Luke Towan does a lot of cool scenery. Let me grab yeah, and he does a lot of weathering. He does outdoor things. Let me grab Luke Towan. There we go. There we go. I highly recommend looking at his stuff. He has a lot of outdoor weathering to different materials like brick and metal, and he explains in detail his scenery, his paint, his materials, like everything. So I highly recommend. So now I'm gonna do my best to simulate what a dry brush would do for us. I'm gonna take that same kind of whatever color I was using, and I'm gonna use a brown, like a dark brown, and really, this is I'm gonna put it on multiply too, and this is really just going to sink into the cracks of our art and just pull out like the really fine details around the plating. It's just gonna sink into those and it's just gonna grab all that little and it can be sloppy, it can be messy because what that does is, you can even splatter some of it and it'll just end up looking like weathering as well, but it'll kind of grab the ends of your painted metal features and it'll really just add contrast when you didn't realize that it needed it. This is something that applies to makeup as well. So for example, if you paint your face a certain color, like let's say you're trying to make grayscale makeup, people just think, oh, you just need a black and white and gray to make it look like, but there's all these subtleties because it is a black and white interpretation of varied tones of color. So, um, people will have to use slightly different colors that are warmer or cooler and add more contrast to make your features stand out and and look more natural as opposed to just putting a flat tone on your face and leaving it there. So if you're interested in the crossover for that, check out makeup as well. It's surprising how connected things like that can be. Hi, Minty. You did all your chores. Hell yeah. So yeah, so let me zoom out a little bit and show you what I was doing. It really doesn't look like I changed anything, but if I remove it, and again, this is just a digital mock-up, so this isn't accurate to what it would look like, but here's just an example of just pushing some of the values, pulling some of the lights out, and putting some of the darks darker. Um, and it really just is a subtle change. And now too, as well, taking something like Rub and Buff or something like, ultra fine mica and really just hold on, let me and it really adding some shine into the metal of this, just adding a little bit more shimmeriness, I suppose. Yeah, graphite. Yeah, graphite powder is also, but just getting some of that extra shine out of stuff, just adding a little bit extra shine on things just to emulate them looking before, after. The more dimension you can give it, the more uh your details will stand out. Um and I guess then the only other thing that really doesn't have to do with the model itself, so here's our before, our after, would be making a scenery piece. I know that people tend to use Warhammer figures for the game So having them be independent of a base is important for you to be able to structure them and lay them out where you need them. But if you want to display something like this, using that Luke Towan video I sent and others like it, there are a lot of people that'll use things like Sculptamold, which is like basically like a paper mache, and foam and some wood and all of the paints and materials that you already have from working on these minis, just making some sort of display that looks like dirt and grass, and then, maybe splattering some of that dirt up onto your tank will make this look like it's moving through some terrain and will be a really cool thing to put on your shelf. So I really like this. I think the color choices are really strong, and all you got to do is just do like little extra things to like make this really good foundation pop. Just pull out all the work that you did with identifying these areas of detail and like painting them different colors. Like really just showcase the work that you put already. Uh yeah, hell yeah. I have always been fascinated by miniatures, which is I used to watch all those Luke Towan videos and Stutson Studio and a lot of miniatures, and I've made dioramas in the past, but it's something that I would love to do more of. So uh in the future, who knows? But I have no idea anything about Warhammer. I just know through like friends and adjacent, companions and everything who have an interest in it. But I know people get really intense, like have armies worth of figurines, which is fucking nuts. So hell yeah, let me save this for Dre. And thank you to Dre for submitting this model. It's really fucking cool. The next one we're gonna move on to is a Cinderant. It's Sin, and it is a model design, which is really cool. Hell yeah. Let me open this up. Let me first off get the title correct. Doink. There we go. So this was sent in by Sin. Let me open it up. Phew. And this is a model, which is really cool. So I wish I could figure paint half as well as Lord Dre. Yeah, Dre did a really good job. When I zoomed in, there was a lot of really fine, intricate detail that was painted very well. I don't know how much of the figure could have been separated, like how much was pulled apart. Sometimes, but not often, figures will have like parts that can be pulled away. But there was a lot of very careful brushwork on that took a lot of time and energy. So huge props, huge props. I gotta take a sip. Let me take a sip. All right, so this is Sin, and this is a model. And first off, if we don't know anything about the character, I like to pull out the design elements that were included that would help us understand this character and what vibe they're going for. So, first off, we have a lot of repeating church and candle imagery. Let me put my this back together. There we go. So, let me use a contrasting color. So, yeah, we have this repeat of church architecture. You can see there are columns here. So it's become an arcade, like a colonnade. We have quite literally the top of a clock tower or a church tower here, and then we have this repeat of iconography from stained glass. Here on the vest, we have stained glass, and these are specifically rose windows, which are what you would think of in cathedrals like Notre Dame. Like you have those huge circular windows, those are called rose windows. And we also have that same stained glass here, and we have a clock-like image here that just further brings us back to this clock tower. Mandy, are you able to add a stroke around not my art part extremely hard? Yeah, I can. I just try to keep it soft so that it doesn't compete with what's on the screen, but I'll fix that. Let me make it a little bit higher contrast. Let me go here. I could also just make it white, but sometimes things have white backgrounds, which is why. Let me see. I could make the back of it darker as well. Let me see. Properties, background, outline. Ugh. Hold on. Let's do a black outline. Oop. And make it darker. There we go. There we go. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. I've seen stained glass corsets and they're so gorgeous. Yeah, I've seen stained glass hats as well. There's this one creator that's had the brim of the hat had stained glass windows on the inside. So like the head is here and then you had stained glass windows radiating out from the hat and the light would come through. Very cool. Very cool. Gothic architecture, as hardcore medievalist nerds would call it, opus frangineum. Francigenium? Francigenium? It's Latin. I just want to be able to read who did this art. Yeah, it's Cinderent. Sin for short. So yeah, and so this architecture is very reminiscent. Well, first off, it's architecture in general, architecture being included in all of this. So we can already kind of get this stately, classic vibe from this character, almost like princely or royal. And it's also further exemplified in the clothing that is being worn. So this character, I'll use a different color. Not only is there stained glass imagery, but this character has a cravat or some sort of layered ascot. They are wearing multiple vests or laced garments that take a lot of money, varied materials. So, just through our own cultural knowledge, we can infer that this character has access to status and or money, but usually they come together. And it's just a very cool regal character that has these morbid gothic bits added in really fun ways. Lots of neat ideas, absolutely. And I don't feel like the ideas are conflicting too strongly with each other. We are balancing some really interesting design motifs. Hi there, how are you? Hi, hi, hi. I'm your little butterfly. Hi, Celador, what's up? Hi, hi, hi. A lot of words to say this character is bougie. No, no, not bougie, just meant to be very royal. Um and as for critique in the chat, there are things that I will get to. So if there's stuff that I miss after the critique, feel free to let me know then, but there's stuff that I'm going to be getting to, so don't you worry. Can you talk about the color palette? Yes, I can talk about the color palette. Um I suppose that's noble, not bourgeoisie. Instead corrected. It's just a noble, very very regal character, meant to be very poised and put together. This character trills their R's when they speak. I know it. It's just a really cool character design. So we have identified the design motif here, and we've also added to it by including these candles. Oops, let me get this back together. Sometimes my toggles will change the brush settings, so I have to avoid those. So yeah, we have these repeat occurrences of candles, and we can see here that the candles on the shoulder haven't been lit, but the candles on these antlers have been lit, and they have almost like this blood color here. And what that reminds me of is when deer or any kind of antlered character or antlered animal sheds velvet from their antlers, the velvet underneath has blood vessels. Velvet is the soft material that grows over antlers while they are developing, and then the velvet will shed. The antler part will remain. The bone portion of the antler will remain, and then that velvet will regrow and shed, and because their antlers will shed each season. So having this blood red wax makes me think of when antlers shed their velvet. That's really cool. It's probably just meant to be a really interesting design element and add some contrast up there. But if you're interested in deer and things like that, that's a really cool kind of nod. I don't know if it was intentional or not. That was really neat. Um, as for the color palette, so we've gone over the motifs of the design. We have Gothic architecture, we have bone candles, again, this very spooky regal vibe. Celador asked specifically about the color palette. We have here, it's not quite analogous. It's kind of like a cooled down pastel, uh, sort of off primary scheme. It's not quite primary and it's not quite secondary, but we're kind of touching on an interesting scheme. So let me pull out some of the colors from this character. And I think the vest is the best place to do that. So we have a warm pink that shows up with a couple different tones. So the pink is really a dominant color here. The character's main color is pink, with slight variations of that pink, tints and shades. Tint being that you add white to the color, a shade being that you add black to the color, or it's just a darker version. But in the traditional sense, quote, of tints and shades, it's adding black or adding white. The tail here also shows. So we have about 4 different versions of this pink, but it is the same pink, just added, with tints and shades. Um, so now we have this yellow. Again, the yellow also comes with tints and shades. Looks like the yellow most directly translates to our creamy, like off-white color. This isn't pure white, but it's close. And then we have a couple shades of purple. In fact, looks like Sin has mixed. We have this more lavender, lilac-y color, um, and then we have this cooler purple that's kind of like on its own. But that little cool color, that little addition of that cool purple just adds some interest. And something we can kind of show here is that this is, like I said, it's not quite a primary color scheme, but it's got all of the beneficial parts of a primary scheme like this. So for example, we have a really dark color that can offer us some contrast. That's our purples. We have a light color that can again offer that contrast and can go towards white, which would be our yellow. And then we have a medium tone color that adds a little bit of warmth, and is very vibrant and very nicely contrasts, and complements our other two colors. And then you get everything in between, if you chose to mix them. But the primary color scheme, this is almost a play on a secondary, you know what I mean? So for the secondary color scheme is the colors that are to the left or right on the color wheel. So we'd have orange, we'd have green, and we'd have purple. So again, this color scheme doesn't fall into it. It's almost an analogous color scheme. An analogous are when colors are next to each other on the color wheel. Let me reorient our color wheel so I can better explain what I mean by them being next to each other on the color wheel. All right, so here's our color wheel again. And our colors kind of live around here, somewhere kind of here, and then our purples live kind of in this neighborhood. So we're kind of, like I said, analogous, meaning that they are the colors directly beside one another on the color wheel. So we'd be going from a violet to a red to an orange. Um, if you spin it around, it's like a wheel, show your point. Yeah, I could definitely spin it around. So you can see here that we're kind of living in this territory, and this purple is almost getting us closer to the blue without getting us too close to it. We're in a very warm tone here, and what is nice about that is while we're kind of living in this area, Sin has introduced these soft slate grays that are still warm toned, but are still playing with our purple here, but they are cool enough compared to the pinks and the yellows that they're offering a reprieve from the warm colors that are happening all over the place. Because even our purple is kind of warm, it's like a plum color. So by having this silver, it's not only a lighter color, but it's a slightly cooler color, and it just offers us a little bit more of a reprieve from all the stuff that's going on. Color is super fascinating. It's really, really interesting. If you're doing shades and tints, can you add a ring of black to the inside outside or a ring of white to the outside inside? What do you mean by that? Like, can I add it to show the difference, or could you use it with those elements? What do you mean by that? So let me reestablish some of these silver colors. For arranging colors, not sure if there's a standard. Oh, you don't have to arrange them in any specific way. You for tints and shades, most often when you're in a color theory course, they will make you start with a color, like a base color, like a primary, so like red, and then incrementally you'll just add white paint to it to get it lighter. You could try for like a 10% increment or like a 20% increment, and then you do the same thing by trying to add a little bit more black to it each time. You don't have to define them in any specific way. It is literally just the terminology to define that are your these are your shades, these are your tints. Tint, shade, and then this is your base color. So again, you don't have to define it in any certain way. Really, it is just to give a terminology to when you're mixing these colors based off of a base color. But there's no rule as in like how you have to use these. But as you can see, like, for our example, we would start with this color, or even this light color, and then I would have like one shade below it and a tint. We have two tints above it, and then we could go more, but we don't. So this is the color, this is where Sin established this color. You could do that with others. I tend to use for the base, the most pure version of the color is where you're starting from, and then anything that gets a little darker or a little bit lighter than that is your tint or shade. But you could have a tint or shade of this dark one or this light one. It really is just meant to be a terminology for you to use, um, you know, for mixing purposes. And our white, one thing too that I've noticed is that there is not really any white in this piece. It's this really pale yellow. So here is what white looks like. This is pure white. You can tell here if I zoom in really close that this is actually a yellow color. And Sin is predominantly using that instead of white, which just kind of keeps everything looking warm. So yeah, so that's the color palette. For the design itself, oops, let me yeah, it's a very faint difference, but when you use it overall, it ends up just making this look a little bit warmer. It's more of a subtle difference, you know what I mean? Bone white. You can see here that the bone is darker. I'll take the color that Sin has, predominantly as their lightest color, and if I put that here, you can see that they've very distinctly made this, a darker bone color, but let me make a highlight like this in the color that Sin used, and then let me turn it white. Do you see that difference? Before, after. It's just slightly cooler. So by having cooler as in temperature, not as in like, wow, cool. So it's a very intentional choice. It just makes things look a lot warmer overall, but it's very subtle when you compare the two of them close up. So for the design itself, I think, oops, hello, accidentally had my bucket tool. For the design itself, I think there's some really strong motifs happening here. A lot of really interesting ideas. We have ribs coming over here that again further give us this bone antler kind of vibe. And so we can clearly tell this character is meant to be a little bit spookier. But we do have a conflict of areas getting somewhat busy in the middle here. We have this beautiful vest, we have this beautiful cloak, but when they are next to each other, we end up with a lot of conflict. Whereas here in the boots, we have these nice large areas of solid color to let our very intentional stained glass stand out. Especially, too, we have a contrast of color. We have a lighter color centered here, and then darker colors on the outside. But here, are the details of our cloak are directly bumping up against the details of our other things. And you can see here that that's, the same thing that we mentioned with the boots is being repeated here. The vest is a nice solid color, and then you have all this detail here in the center. They add a nice contrast to one another and make it legible, but this cloak ends up interfering. So what we could do to help combat that is it's very intentionally meant to be a shoulder cape. So it's more than likely that this cape is going to be always near the middle here instead of it being worn behind the character. So, with that being said, what can we do to ensure that there's enough of a visual break between them? We could take this nice, cool silver color and really define the whole entire border with it. So, just add a little bit more. And I might even cap the end of it with this nice metallic silver color, and also to have a difference of material. We talked about materials before, um, and we can just further exemplify that here. We have a lot of really interesting pattern, and now we can add material and texture to even further, differentiate things. So now you can see here that we have a little bit more separation between our cape and our vest here. This is the before, this is the after. And I've also solved a contrast issue with the pant leg here, the pants versus the cloak. There wasn't as good of a definition between those two because that dark plum color is very similar to the pants. So before, we don't have as clear of a differentiation between the leg here and the cape. It's very close. So by having this silver here, we've not only solved a little bit of our busyness in the middle, but we've also solved where it overlaps the pants, which is a double whammy. So I'm gonna even just make it a little bit thicker, make it about the same as it is on the bottom to really just frame in our busy design while also keeping our vest from being bumped up against another high visual area. And it also offers us this like thick metal framework. It also kind of balances with the weight of these pieces here, these like pillars. It's almost the same width on that other side. So now we have a little bit of harmony between those two things, which is a fun bonus. Um, so there's that. And now with material, I might want this to look a bit more metallic. So I'm going to, like we mentioned earlier, I'm going to add some like highlight areas, gonna send in my art and then get really uncomfortable defensive about the critique. Well, thankfully, that'll happen next month. So hopefully you don't feel the need to be defensive. It's not meant to be an insult. It's not meant to be a knock at your skill. Everybody that has submitted something and everyone that will ever submit something has a really awesome foundation. You guys have put a lot of work and care into these things, and it's not my intent, nor is it the goal to make you feel like your original was not good in its own right. That's not what I'm here for. What I want to do is show you all of the things that you've done really well, and then offer professional insight into how you can make those things stand out even more. And it's really just like a technical insight. It doesn't have to be anything uh, personal. If you leave, this is my motto, I guess. If you leave feeling worse than you came in, then that's my fault, not yours. Um, and also though, giving and receiving critique is a skill. It's something that they train you for in school, and it doesn't seem like it would be something that you need to be trained in, but it is a skill. It does require practice. So, giving and receiving feedback are really, really, you wouldn't think so, but they are a skill. So now here you can see that I've added a little bit. There's constructive criticism and there's just criticism. Absolutely. My only goal is to make you feel good about going forward with your art, like being excited about what not only what you've already made, but like all of the things that you can do with what you've made. Like a huge, that's a huge it's meant to be positive. That's the vibe I want to make. And hi there, Fleece, how are you? Let me take a sip of my wawa. Okay, so now with just some small changes, we have this kind of shiny metal element that we've added in. It's not super crazy, but if I remove this, you can now see the changes that we've made. This is before, after. We have a much more crisp definition between our busy areas, and then we have an area of solid. Busy versus solid will help things be legible. Before, after, before, after. And it just makes that cape stand off of the rest of the outfit way more. Taking a lunch break and working on my model. Oh, hell yeah. That's exciting. Well, welcome in. I'm happy to see you. Another thing we can do is more of a rendering trick, making it look like the body is tucking up under this piece. I'm going to select everything underneath, And you can see there are some shadows that Sin has included. And now I'm going to just take a soft brush. I'm going to make a layer on multiply, probably at like 50%. And I'm going to use like a deep red color. And I'm just going to go right up under these big parts. And I am going to just add a shadow. In fact, might be able to make it a little bit darker. And that will even further separate our high detail area from our not so high detail area. Very, very subtle. Let me group that together. Before, after, before, after. Very, very small things just to bring out the detail that Sin worked really hard to put in. Um, Other areas that could go for some uh material is if we wanted to mimic that same metallicness on this church here, having it look like armor, add a little bit of contrast to these highlights. I like your username. It reminds me of wolf in sheep's clothing vibes. Also, sheep in wool. Fleece is made from wool. Very smart. So yeah, adding a little bit of contrast over here, using the same colors that Sin used, but now we are implying that this is like metallic almost. We're giving it a little bit of a vampire sheep. Hell yeah. So yeah, just adding a little bit of highlight to those things, making it look a little shiny. And so now it's almost giving like an armor piece, not only in its shape, but in its material. And that's really fun. Adding subtle highlights to things like the candles, I'm adding a little bit of like, and again, I don't want to go so far out of what Sin put here because it is intentionally put this way. So I don't want to like do too much that changes the style. Just offering slight differences. You can see here the contrast is a lot lower on the colors I used for the candle. So they don't look as shiny, but wax is very shiny. So we have a little bit of contrast. Um, so yeah, so there's just a little bit for after, just a little bit of rendering to help. And we could also include this color on our bone, maybe in like a softer pass, just really pull some of the detail off the bone, capture some of these high points, and really just, give it a little bit more variety going on with that, and just really subtle. And if it's something like cell shading is what Sin prefers, then we could just give those harder edges. But we're just pulling out some of those details. It's like very similar to what we were doing with the dry brush for Dre. Adding those highlights really just helps pull out some of those details. Repeat that here on this bone down here. Keep them very similar in their treatment so you can see that they are the same material. Um, One of the things for anatomy, now that we've done some material and some, some subtle changes, so after, before, after, the hand anatomy could be slightly adjusted. Nothing crazy. We can clearly see the segments of the fingers, which is a really good way to practice drawing hands. Um, but the base of the hand doesn't seem quite sturdy enough to support our fingers. So I would just simplify some of this shape. The fingers are a little long for the hand, and they are a low on the body. So the actually seems like the legs could be extended, um, rather than the arm being shortened because the elbow is falling at the correct place in the torso. It just seems that the legs could be longer. So what I will do is I will add more canvas so that we can do a little bit of lengthening without ruining anything. But a good rule of thumb, no pun intended, is that your fingertips should fall at the center of your thigh. And so you can see here that Sin's fingertips are coming actually right above the knee rather than middle of the thigh. So you can see they're actually quite a bit longer. And it's not just a hand thing. The hand can be made smaller, but also the legs could be made longer. So let me do that real quick. Ah, Photoshop, calm down. We need to consider the ape factor, though. No, no, this character is not meant for that. We are just using the standard human proportion. So let me copy this hand, and I will bring it up, move it over just a smudge, and I will create a patch underneath just to oops, just to kinda hide our old hand underneath. So, yes, we fix it a little bit, it's not so long, and now I will copy the legs. Oh my gosh. Stop. Photoshop is just rebelling today, so let me grab just the legs as much as I can and just drag them down. Yes, I know it is a real thing, but when we are talking about standard proportions for human beings, or for humanoid characters, I'm just going to keep it with standard rather than factoring in a whole bunch of other stuff. So let me undo that, and then I will paste it over here. So now you can see that we have a little bit better proportion here. Let me fix some of the areas that got a little spotty, and let me put these into my group so I can show you the before and the after of this change. So now you can see that the fingertips are falling at the center of the thigh. Before, after, before, after. Our character's waist and hips have been brought up just by lengthening those legs. So standard is the fingertip at mid thigh. So we made the hand shorter and the legs longer, and that solved some of our balance issues as well. Before, after. The character, looks a bit top heavy before, and that's something that's really subtle that you wouldn't really quite see until you see the after. Before, after. Really simple change, not too much, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can also have characters that are intentionally, given different proportions, so if you have D&D characters, having halflings, dwarves, they will have different body proportions. I recommend looking at real life individuals with dwarfism, to see where proportions change. And also, too, you can see a really common example would be if you see children, their proportions are different. Like, and a child that is of different proportions. So, like, for example, a child with dwarfism also has different proportions. So, take a look at real life and understand that body proportions are different for everybody, though there are standards that are just to make things look balanced when you're trying to recreate them in art. There's a lot of variation to real people. So if you're making a fictional character and you want them to have a specific body type, take a look at those types, all individuals, all sorts of people, and you'll get a really good example, and a really good reference for how large the head is, how wide the shoulders are, how long the legs are, etc., and use other body parts like the fingertips, to give you a starting point. If you ever did those activities as a kid in like coloring books where it's a grid and it tells you to like draw like the other half of a face or something like that, that's actually a drawing tool. That is a sight line drawing tool that is taught to you in art school, believe it or not, but it also helps children learn certain skills. So, for example, they'll have, let's say it's a teddy bear. They'll give you half the details of this teddy bear here, and then you have to use the grid on the opposite side to draw the other half of the bear. So think of the body as a series of landmarks, and those landmarks will tell you where to put features. So we can see the tip of the ear is falling about here on the grid. So that's where the tip of our ear would be. It's falling about one third of the way through here. So that's about where our ear would fall on the opposite side. And the top of the head, obviously, we can connect that right there, and the side of the head is actually coming to right about here. So we can use our landmarks to establish where these different things are and quite literally connect the dots. So if you've ever done that in like an activity book for like kids, then you will be able to use this type of look. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah, grids and rulers, if you're working digitally, that's super, super handy. I would also recommend using guidelines. So I currently have rulers available on the top and left of my window here. And to create a guide in Photoshop, you can click on the top or the side to bring a horizontal or a vertical guide. And so if I take my fingertips and put a guide there, you can now see that that is lined up. And so you can use that as a reference. So that's about, my knee is, let's see, my kneecap is here and my hip is here. And the fingertips are falling about halfway through. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly halfway through. You don't want it to be super, super stiff, but use that as a guide. And I recommend looking into anatomy books, whipping out a really cute teddy bear in 2 seconds. Well, I mean, that's you too can make teddy bears. But it's a good example. It's something that a lot of people can do. They just don't realize that they know how to do it already. So aside from, again, before, after, some small additions to solid color here, some slight rendering to bring out some other materials, add a little interest, and lengthening the legs to fix a little bit of proportion. The only other thing would be some anatomy of the face and head, which are already pretty strong, but I think we can just make them a little bit stronger. So let me grab this, slap that in here. So I really like the expression on this character, even though there's a lot of like gothic, um, morbid details. This character still looks really friendly. So I'm just gonna shorten the eye, just a smidge over here, and I am going to fill in this little area here. So before, after, I've balanced the face. I've added a little bit more symmetry to that far eye to the near eye. If we wanted to recreate the shape of the head here, let me get a better color. The center of the nose, the brow, the forehead here, mouth, chin, we can see now that our eye is a little bit more balanced. A little bit on the far eye, having this eyelash detail here actually might not be as visible. It would probably change with the direction of the eye, which would be facing out more this direction. So an easy fix for that is I'm going to just do a very quick draw over, and I'm going to change a little bit of the orientation of this far eye to make it look a bit more like it is following the shape of the head a little bit more. Very easy fix, very quick fix, and also makes it a little bit easier to tell what's going on the far side with the bridge of the nose here. I'm also going to include a little bit more of the eye here, so we're not cutting off quite as much. We want the eye to be as open as it is on this near side as it is on the far side. There we go. So let me go before, after, before, after. Very quick, easy changes. Nothing super wrong with the original. We're just evening it out. Celador was quoting a song. What's going on? I said, hey, 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 so yeah, so we just balanced out our eyebrow a little bit and our eye, lengthening this brow just a smudge. Again, nothing nutty, nothing crazy. Before, after, before, after. Just added a little bit symmetry back to the face. Uh, the last thing is probably adjusting where the mouth is sitting. So let me grab that because the nose is pushing out farther. Let's grab and rotate. And now we have maintained more of a straight line down through the face. Again, from the hairline here, down the center of the nose, tip of the nose, mouth, mouth, chin. So here's before, after. Let me get rid of the that line there. Um, I like that the skull has the antlers cut off. Yeah, that's a really cool detail. Almost as if they were taken from this creature and added to this prince, but they're also candles. So you're like, what's the story with this? That's kind of neat. Another thing here is that the because I've shortened the eyes, I've squished them in a little bit, I have now warped the pupil, so let me fix that as well to round it out. Wonderful. Before, after. Really small changes, not anything wild, but it's crazy how much simple changes can impact the look of the art. Really subtle changes. Nothing crazy, nothing revolutionary. In fact, what's been done to this character was really good, a really good start. So, one thing for just like nitpicky, I'll cover the little bit of the forehead over there just so that there's not a little bit of the skin showing up. I might lower this hairline just a smudge, just so that it doesn't look like there's too much forehead back there. But really, this this was, very small fixes, nothing crazy. I do like this haircut. I like the color of the hair. And the last thing is if this is a deer character, which we are meant to assume, deer tend to have ears that are quite large and stick upward. Um, so now we're being given, a more of either a doe kind of look or even a rabbit kind of look. But the issue that we come into with that is that this character has these really cool antlers that we don't want to take away from. So this would just really be a personal preference for the artist. Um, it really is just like I said, a personal preference for the artist. So what I'll do is I'll mock up what it would look like with higher ears, larger ears. They tend to have a nice wide base here. Um, and it could either be up high, it could be lower. I've seen art where it comes up lower on the head as, about where human ears would land. So we could do that. Let me skew it out to the side. Um, yeah. So it really just depends on how anthropomorphized your character will be. I recommend taking a look at examples of furry art or anthro art to get an example of what other people have done with like similar characters. But in the end, it really just depends on the vibe you're going for. This ear might be a little too large. It ends up giving the impression of wolf when it's so low like this. I'm just gonna use like this pale color on the inside. If it's like this, to me, it ends up reading a bit more like a rabbit because it's coming from so low. But again, we come into the problem of having, the side of the head be kind of empty. Again, it is a personal preference thing. I recommend just trying different things out. See what you enjoy, see what you like, but it really is a personal preference thing. Um, for me, I prefer this ear, though now you're left with an emptiness here. So then you're like, okay, well, do you want two sets of ears? It really is a just a, it is a preference thing. So let me clear out this hairline just a smidge. And yeah, so again, there are multiple ways for you to do ears like this. This way isn't the best way. It's not the only way. It really just depends on what you like. But this shape and proportion ends up reading more deer. So it really is, just your own preference. Um, if I were to remove the other ears that we have, let me just kind of do a very quick mock up of that. We'll just do that. We end up freeing up some of the visual weight of our outfit, and we've separated the head almost entirely from the base of the body, which is a nice change to the silhouette. And again, we're now left here with this awkward spot where, do we want the ears up high? Do we want them low? If this is truly a mixture of deer and person, I think we can forgive the ears being higher up. But again, that is a personal preference thing. Then, you just kind of come to the point where you make it look good for how you like it. Um, and mess around with different things and ideas. um try to see what makes you happy, what gives you, what gets you into a nice place. Let me move the earring up, you know something like that. If we were to go with a look like this. Again, personal preference, just play around with it. But this is a little bit nicer because now we have a clear separation of head and neck. Been lurking, gonna go to bed. Oh, have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks for lurking. So here's the before. We have the ears kind of blending into this large shape here on the shoulders, but now with this, our ears are fully detached. Our silhouette is a little bit more legible. And if you're ever curious about seeing a silhouette on a character, I recommend just, copying your character art and making it completely black so you can see the silhouette and see how legible stuff is. Um, so yeah, let me see if I can't really quickly kind of put this ear on the other side just to kind of give us an idea of what it would look like on the opposite end. I'm going to reflect. It would be back here more. This does conflict a little bit with our antlers, but if we make it a solid color because the ear is kind of turned away from us, it might not be so much of a problem. Oops, let me get my eraser. There we go. Let me make this a little softer so I can, there we go. Might not be too much of a problem, especially, this is a model, so there's going to be some movement. There might be, something else going on. So it doesn't need to be, too crazy. But yeah, that's about what it would look like if we had the same ear on the opposite side. It does conflict with our antlers, but I think the antlers kind of stand alone and there is enough contrast that I think it's still legible. Not everything can be perfectly contrasted, not everything can be perfectly lined up. So again, do what makes you happy with your decision. I will show the full before and after. So here is the before and after, before, after. And let me take this character and let me put them side by side because I think that could be fun. Move this one to the side and I will paste this and move it over just so we can see. Hold on. There we go. Oops. There's some holes in the art. Let me fix that. There we go. There we go. So now we can kind of see the two characters side by side. Proportions are a little bit different, silhouette's a little bit different. Some of our details are a little bit more legible. But yeah, overall, a really cool design. There's a lot of really good things to love about this design. And I really, really enjoy it. So thank you so much for submitting. Uh, I like this a lot. It's a really cool character design. I like the outfit. I think it's fucking dope. And we're gonna move on to the next one. It is currently, let's see, we've been going for almost 4 hours, so I'm gonna take a short break to fill up my water, and we're gonna get the next person going. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more. The next one is from No Simps. Let me grab this, and then I'll get my water real quick, and we'll move on to the next. This one's really cool. A lot of really cool illustrations have been sent in today, so thank you guys for your submissions. And for those of you that are submitting now, yours will be for next month's critique. So everybody get something to drink, stretch real quick. I will be right back with some more water. Yeah. So one second, guys. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. No, up, whoops, whoops, whoops. Wrong screen. Alright, I'm back, I'm back. Got some water. More water. I want ramen too. I've got some instant ramen. I've got the Shin black ramen, which is very good. Alright. Back at it again with my white vans. Okay, so this is a submission by No Simps Be Gone. Really fucking cool. We can see here we have this awesome, like, coal-fired, horse here. You can see here it's got a boiler in the belly. Yes!
Drink water or else.
I will, thank you. Thank you. I sipped it while I was on my way over to the room. So, horses, first off, horses hard to draw. Horses very hard to draw. That being said, for a mechanical horse with a lot of detail, I think Simps made a really really good, like, you can tell it's a horse, right? You have everything that's recognizable. I can tell that a reference was used. These legs are placed very intentionally. Been zoning out. That's fair. I'm doing a lot of talking. A lot these art critique streams, I'm talking almost nonstop for the whole thing, and that's crazy. So we can see here there's the side of the belly here. We've got these feet that are very intentionally placed. So very clearly a reference was used for these legs because they're complex. So you can see here that there was reference used, which is awesome. Always use reference. Fall asleep so easily in an art critique stream. That's fair. People fall asleep in my usual streams. Hi there, Magi Raven. How are you? Yeah, horses are hard to draw. So I definitely recommend using reference. Any animal, especially quadrupeds, because the legs tend to be very confusing. But bovine or equine characters, that's cow or horse, tend to be very difficult to draw. So uh I highly recommend using references, finding multiple angles so you can not only references aren't meant to be necessarily like a copy, but they are oh hello. Did you see how fucked up my alerts looked? What the heck? Welcome, Raiders. Let me refresh my alerts. What the heck was that? Welcome, Raiders. How are you? Oh my gosh. Hi there, Aria. How are you? Welcome in, Raiders. I'm Mandy Quinn, Mall Mannequin. I'm an illustrator, animator, and a professional goober. And today we're doing an art critique. Sorry, the alert was kind of strange. Let me really quickly go into studio mode, but welcome in. Oh, hello. Did you guys hear that? What the fuck is going on? Let me refresh my alert boxes. Oh my goodness. What the fuck? All right, everything's been refreshed, I think. But welcome in, Raiders. How are you? What were you doing today? You were playing Borderlands Game of the Year Enhanced. Oh, hell yeah. I only played a bit of the first Borderlands, and I don't remember very much. I don't remember, but I hope you had a fabulous time. I hope you had a wonderful stream. If you guys don't already know me, I draw all sorts of garbage like this. What? What do you mean? What's pretty sus? What are you making sounds for? What the heck? Let me uh, get that up a little bit. Playing Borderlands, it was chaotic as fuck. Oh my gosh. What happened? What you got me curious now. What the heck happened? Oh my gosh. Ooh, keys. The knocking is coming from Celador. Celador's got door in the name, you know what I mean? But thank you so much for the raid. If you need to raid and run, take care of yourself. Please, please do. But if you'd like to stay, we're about more than halfway through. Actually, no, wait, hold on. How many have I done? How many have I done? One, two, three, four. I have 5 out of 15. Okay, yeah, 5 out of 13. So we're just under halfway done. Well, actually, yeah. This is our 6th one. So we're gonna be going for a little bit longer. Well, I want to get these done. So a couple hours went into FPS hell. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my stream crashed. The scuff is real. The scuff is fucking real. Wish I was those keys. Me too. Oh my god. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, Raiders. Sorry for the chaos. That alert being funky. We had a crash earlier, so things got messed up. I also need to update OBS. Celador, I didn't even look at the event viewer. I opened it and then closed it because something else happened. Let me look at the event. Oh my gosh. Let me see real quick if I can event viewer? Hello? Let me see what the crash was. A warning. So that happened at what, 6 p.m.? Just says secure boot update failed. System event. I don't know. What? Hold on. I totally forgot to look up the horse respond when farmer said hello. Hey. There was a warning and then the error, but it doesn't say what the event ID 1796. All right, hold on. Event ID 1796. 1796. I'm all quiet. Event triggers? I don't know. 1796 was the system ID for the crash. Anyway, back at it with the actual focus of this. We have this really cool running pose for this horse. There's a lot of energy. Uh and this is a really awesome, like, all this soot and smoke that's dusting up is a really interesting compositional choice, and I really like it. There's this awesome energy. Good year, that's what I was born. Yeah, it was, Mitzi. There's this really awesome diagonal energy that's happening here. We're getting a really cool, foreground, middle ground, background, and the Windows event occurs when an error occurs when applying an updated oh, alright. I don't know. It could have been that OBS needs updating and that's my computer was like, "Hey, get this updated." But I don't know. But it didn't give me a blue screen, so I figured it was some other shit. Anyway, we have a really cool diagonal composition here. Very cool. And then again, we have a foreground. So this smoke is our foreground. The horse is our middle ground and our focal point here, with a really awesome, energetic pose. And then our background was left really, really simple. I mean, you can just kind of barely tell that there's a horizon there. Um, and that's all you need, right? You're not trying to distract from what's happening here and here. And it also aids in the idea that it's very blurry. You're looking through this smoke and fire. And so you don't need to worry about the background. That is a stylistic choice you can make, but honestly, don't bother if you're really trying to focus here. Um, so one of the things though, as a result, is that we're losing a lot of really awesome detail in our horse because of our soot and fire. And so though we want it to look like it is kicking up all this soot, it's blowing up all this soot from here. We don't want to lose our legs as much and we don't want to lose the fire. Here, the fire is being treated like a solid object when it should be treated like a light source. So, we're going to do a couple things to make our horse stand out. And you can see already here that No Simp's already applied some of those lighting ideas onto the horse, but we can do them a little bit more so that it really makes this horse stand out from the clouds. The one thing I will not be addressing too much on the horse anatomy just because horse is hard, you know what I mean? But one of the things we can do is try to further I'll focus on the anatomy real quick, but we'll really just want to make sure that our shoulders and neck are reading as shoulders and neck, that our near leg is reading as a near leg, that our far leg is reading as a far leg here, and that our torso is reading like a torso back here. We need space for our ribs, that our rump is reading like it's the rump, a little bit in the back there, and that our hind legs are reading like our hind legs. This one's kind of tucked in the back there. This is that rear leg coming forward. So we might want to just cut out some of the bulk here and add some clearer definition in the paneling to really separate these separate areas of our horse. But aside from that, I really think you can just change where your details are to further offer structure to this horse. Only thing I can say about the smoke is I'm not sure where the bottom smog is coming from since the exhaust's in the back. I think it's a dramatic kind of vibe. It's adding drama to the scene as if it's kicking up so much smoke. We could also say maybe there's a race happening with these horses and there's another one around us. We can really just chalk it up to creative license. Just creative license. Um, Not gonna get too in the weeds with it, but honestly, people sometimes just make choices for them to be, cool and have awesome composition. That's probably what we're dealing with here. So what I would just do, let me turn this to black here, and just pretend that this is us making some clearer definition in the machinery to make sure that our horse is reading anatomically. And we're just building off of this horse's structure, you know, again, pulling out the muscle in the machinery here, but really just defining this shape better. And I'm going to take this color and I am going to just kind of carve out a little bit of this back area. John Backflip ain't doing nothing. Enough of John Backflip. He ain't here. All right. So now we're just kind of, we're just kind of playing off of. It's also too it looks like there might be some sort of, like, gun, apparatus here, but it's unclear, especially because there is not a similar one on the opposite side of the horse. So, if we were to continue using this almost gun-like, shape, I would recommend either getting rid of it completely or making it symmetrical to the opposite side of the horse, just so it is much more clear what that is and where it's coming from. But for now, I'm going to get rid of that in hopes of making our horse a little bit more legible. Also, the smoke is making it a little confusing to tell what pieces are where, so I'm just doing some general stuff. Horses are real, believe it or not. Believe it or not. So yeah, so now we've just added some definition between panels to just make it look a little bit more like a horse. I'm going to just very gently erase some of those to make it look, like it's receding in space. Um, and now I'm going to address the lighting. So as we can see, Simps already tried to bring out that back leg with the lighting. And of course, the smog is going to create a little bit of problem for us. So let me go up here first. Our fire is a light source. Our fire is going to be bright as fuck. And though these color, the shape and the colors tell us that it's fire, we can do a little bit more to really make this look like fire. I'm going to do a very quick example. I'm taking a base color and I'm marking out where our fire is. This fire, even through the smog, this fire will be recognizable as a light source and will impact the smog around it. So, first off, already we have just given this horse way more impact because of this. So, let me really quickly add a little bit more direction to this fire. So now we have this fire following behind our horse. Take a look at actual horse manes. They will give you, a pretty good idea of like this shape in the wind. Um, I've lengthened it, so now it's adding a little bit of direction. It's adding a little bit of drama. And let me see if I can't warp it a little bit to follow our cool diagonal. Just because I like the shape, I like the length, but maybe it can follow our diagonal a little better. Let me clean up my side here. Yeah, a world of difference. Yeah, it's a subtle change, but now this fire is just calling our attention. There's no question that this is a fire, and we can do some interesting stuff. You can use a splatter brush, or you can just kind of make some of these little embers trailing off, and you're just now even adding more fucking drama, more of this drama, more of this direction. You're just really calling attention to this fire. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hard edge eraser and I'm gonna start erasing out segments of this brush or segments of my fire and really just kind of making it organic and interesting and giving it a little bit more interest. And look at that. Very easy. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go over with a clipping mask and the source of the fire we will assume is the base of the neck. That's where this flame is orienting from. So what we're gonna do is if you look at a candle, most often the center, the point of which the flame is coming from will be the brightest part. It will be almost white. And we're almost inverting what it was that Simps did who had red at the base, and we are gonna take that same red and we're going to put that on the tips of this fire. And now we have this really vicious looking flame here, and we can tell where that light's coming from, where it's going, and it's just 1, 2. Really easy. Another easy way to make this fire look like a light source is by not having outlines on it. Don't put outlines on it because it's not attached to, it's not part of this horse at all. It is its own lineless, ethereal element that just doesn't need line art. And it just stands up way more off the base of the horse. Yeah, there's also you can have blue if it's a gas flame. You might have blue, so let me add a little bit of that. It's almost like a cold blue. You know, you could do a little bit of that, but since we're trying to keep it nice and bright, we want this to be our light source here. We're going to just try to maintain it here. And then we can go here and maybe with a softer eraser I can erase out some of Wow! Yeah. So maybe with a softer eraser I can pull out some of that. Yeah, yeah, this horse is fucking it up crazy style. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna grab that same yellow, and I'm really now that we know that we can kind of punch up this brightness, I'm gonna come in with the eyes, and I'm really gonna just carve them out of this surface. Really, really easy changes to an already really cool design. Again, following our diagonal kind of look. Obviously, these eyes, I'm gonna move this eye a little bit off center. We could, obviously there's more anatomy detail that we need to adjust for this. But for now, for our, intents and purposes, we are just trying to define those eyes. Obviously, there's a little bit more of a brow here. You know, I'm not gonna pretend that I can draw a perfect horse, but obviously now I'm gonna move the eye over. You know, it's gonna a little bit of a back and forth. Oops. Oh, a little bit further over. Have the bridge of the nose be a little bit more prominent. I'm just pressing the wrong hotkeys is what's happening. All right. Hold on. Yeah, it's a little bit convoluted. We wouldn't see as much of that far eye, but I'm just doing this as an example. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it is what it is for now. And I have a clipping layer, which is where this white is coming from. So let me reestablish where the glow is orienting from. It is originating here in the center. So I'm going to keep that glow in the center here, and I'm gonna take that same orange that we got and maybe kind of put it around this exterior side here, almost like we're seeing the inside of the metal. And then I'm gonna go over this with a layer. I'm gonna go with a screen layer, and I'm gonna just choose a bit of white, or rather a bit of yellow, and a soft brush. And I'm gonna reestablish that glow that was already put here. And I'm gonna extend it out like we did our flames. So let me take this, I'm gonna take my soft brush again and erase out of it just to kind of imply that this is also kind of flaming or steaming. Um, and I'll add that same kind of glow here to our hair. And little bit more of this, and look at that. Let me let me group my changes together. We have our before and we have our after. Before, after. We've really pulled in our anatomy just a smidge. We've emphasized that this fire is fire and it's really cool. And now we have to do that same thing to the rest of the fire. Really simple changes, already just elaborating on an already cool art piece by Simps. So we're gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna actually take this tail is kind of in the back here. I want us to see it and I want it to be an extension of our canvas. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did here, maybe just kind of bow it out and have it really just emphasize this really strong diagonal that we're working with. Okay, let me grab some of this gray and let me just erase out our something like this would have done numbers in Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. Would have made a cool boss or something. Yeah, oh my gosh. A really cool fucking horse boss? That would be sick. Just horsing around. So now I'm gonna just kinda carve out some of this, reestablish some of my structure, and add some of those embers, again, in the same direction that it's flowing, and we're just now setting ourselves up for a really cool piece that, again, we now have this really energetic diagonal. We're just really enforcing the pose that this horse was in and just amping it up. Now we'll do what we did with the last one. The source is from the body, so we will just make the lightest part this area closest to the body, and we'll do the same with this orange, and we might even darken it a little bit to like push it even further away. Um, but again, we're just vibing. We can put some undulation. If you really want to get into doing fire and effects, there are people online that will give you way better fire and effects than I can. But this is just a really easy way. I think the biggest thing to making fire look like fire is just not giving it an outline. Same with water. Um, Fire looking like fire, no outline, and then water looking like water, no outline. Make the hooves red hot. Yeah, having the horseshoes be like molten metal would be really fucking cool. One feature that was already included here is this boiler side, which I think is super cool. Seeing this little window into the interior belly of the horse is a super cool idea. So let's make it even more obvious and curve even more on the side of the animal, and they also now give us the appearance of ribs, which is also super cool. So now we have not only an awesome design element, but a bit of like a morbid anatomical kind of vibe. So now our horse has like ribs on the side. We could probably follow the rib cage a little bit tighter. Could moats fly from the grill. Moats. What do you mean by moats? What do you mean by that? Let me grab a little bit of this color. Oops. And pop that in between. Oh, the embers. Yeah, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Hold on. We're gonna give these the same treatment that we gave our uh our other pieces. Let me go here. I'm gonna make, let's see. Hello? Where is my, why is it not, what did I draw this on? Oh, I drew this up here. Okay, I was like, where is this? Hold on. I was like, what the fuck's happening? Hold on. Very easy things to just make this stand out even more. Clipping mask, there we go. I was like, why ain't this working? So I'm gonna make this orange look like the interior of the metal a little bit. So we're kind of seeing some thickness happen. And it's just sticking out. If you think about it, the smokestack's like a giant butt thing. I'm gonna take the white again, showing that we have an origin point for where this light is coming from. What rhymes with orange door hinge? Next question. All right, so now we have these cool boiler ribs. Part of this is, by extension, it would be nice to have a panel of some sort from which to access this area of the boiler, like you're putting coal in it. So I'm just gonna like pretend that we have a little excuse you. I'm gonna pretend that we have a nice panel on the side of this animal here. Just gives us a little bit more. Oh my god, y'all. And let me grab a little bit of this green and just really emphasize that this is like one piece. All right. So now we have brought attention to the area of the horse that is the source of our fire. And again, let me just come back in here with a glow. I used a screen blending mode and a soft round brush. So this is very similar to what No Sims already did, just a little bit different. There we go. And now the flames are cutting through this smoke. We'll still need a little bit of smoke over top because the light can be obscured, but it should be obscured way less. In fact, I'll put a little bit over top, and I'm going to change the blending mode. The fire should still be able to read through it. I'm going to add a little bit of like a dusty orange color because the smoke is now being given color from the lighting inside of it because the smoke is particles in the air, and those particles can also reflect light. So let me just kind of now we can see that the that orange makes it feel a little bit more like the smoke is over top of and that the flames are inside of it rather than just having gray on top of it, if that makes sense. And I think, like Celador mentioned, having a little bit of pizzazz on the hooves might be pretty cool. I'm gonna go for like a molten metal kind of vibe. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with red. I'm just gonna pretend that I have the hooves in the right spot. And this, as opposed to the fire, the molten will be coming from inside. So the center is gonna be hot. Um, rather than, and it's kind of similar to how like our origin point is this very bright white, but we're just kind of focused on a middle of these hooves, a bright yellow, but we don't want it to be white in the center because the metal being molten is, is what we're we were paying attention to the molten metal. It won't get really 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 hot unless you're like right inside like a forge or something. So we don't want it to look too crazy compared to the fire because it's not meant to just be fire, it's meant to be like molten. And so now we'll do the same thing we did with the smoke. We'll have this very subtle, we're going to put some smoke back over them like so. But then we are going to take this this orangey color and have it glow through the smoke. Maybe even have a little bit, oops, have a couple areas poke more through the smoke than others, so that it's giving the effect that it is glowing off of this rather than just being covered by it. Um, yeah, the machines that forge metal are kind of crazy. Some of the orange smoke behind makes it look like hoof prints. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that idea. And so the last thing I'll do is now what again, Simps did some of that, having that light now interact with our horse. So I'm going to make a new layer, and this is going to be like an orangey color, and we are now going to apply some of that lighting onto the areas of the horse, being mindful of where the fire is coming from. This smokestack in the back is going to get a lot more of that light on the front because the fire is hitting it there. So let me get a yellowy color. Let me erase some of the actually, I'll put this behind the fire stuff. There we go. So now you can see here if when I remove this, obviously we're gonna do a little bit of tweaking, and it could get a little bit lighter in certain areas depending on how reflective our metal is. I don't, it could be a very matte metal, but we don't wanna take too much away from our fire, so I'm gonna just try to leave that, as it is for now. Let me Ooh, this is a color dodge layer, that's kinda fun. Air exposed to fire will also, yeah, they will also have soot. The horse is very dark. That's another accessory thing you can do. You can add, soot. Most of this horse needs a little bit of definition around like where the edges of things are. But the least we can do is play with the fire, the lighting from the fire. So let me just continue doing that here. Add a little bit of that around here and then around the rump here. This hind leg is getting a little bit of that, not so much, but it'll help us. This will also help us define areas in different. It'll just push and pull the anatomy of this horse around, and make it a little bit easier to see it through this smog. So let's just kind of pull out some of these details here. This is the side of the belly exposed to the fire here. We have a little bit of like a shoulder blade in the back of the neck. The ears are going to be especially bright because they're right up on this. Will you be posting the before and afters in Discord in the end of stream? I will be sending these to the individuals that posted them, or rather the people that submitted them. Uh, I don't usually post them out afterwards. I just return them to whoever submitted them. All right, so we're doing a little bit of careful. I wonder if metal horse is more or less heavy than an actual horse. I'd say more. Got Gatorade. What flavor of Gatorade? What kind of Gatorade do you have? And I'll do a little bit, maybe on the backs of this right here, but really it wouldn't have too much light. But now we just have this incredible light source. We are definitely seeing like where this is coming from. In fact, we get a little bit from the back there. And now we can really see this horse. Orange? I like orange. We can really see this horse off of the background. And so yeah, let me show you what it looks like. Here's the before, where we have a really cool concept, really awesome composition, this strong diagonal. And now we have just made the anatomy more defined. We have gotten rid of some of the areas that confuse the shape. And now we've emphasized that lighting and pushed it over the top to really give us a solid flaming boiler horse. And I think this is such a cool idea. The one last thing I would do if we wanted to get into the background is I think we could lighten our sky a little bit or darken our sky. So we've got two options. Let me copy this. Oops. And let me put this in the bottom. So now I'm going to take this color and we could add some variety to it. Maybe even have it be a little bit more green towards the bottom. So having a little bit of a lighter color, having it go up towards a cooler color, more sky toned. It's looking a little stormy, the way that it's currently rendered. So let me just kind of put some of that in there. We can also use some of the advice from one of our prior pieces where we use some of that sky to put lighting on our character from the other side. So we have a little bit more of a vibrant color here. And now let me go back over top with some more lighting. I'm just taking this same bluey greeny color and now I am going to highlight the opposite side of the horse. I'm doing a really intense rim light just because it might help us get this off of the background a little bit more, especially right down here. So, and then a little bit softer the further away it is from the light source. something like this. We can pull out some of the machinery. Maybe there's like some neck right here. We can do a little bit of that on the rump back here, a little bit on this smokestack here, and maybe a little bit just very faint back here on the legs just to pull it even further out of that background. I might lower the opacity a smidge so it's not so crazy. But yeah, so now we have taken it from this to this. We have a really interesting piece and a really cool design, like really cool. Um we could, if we wanted to go a little bit harder on some of this smog, really just create almost like a vignette of where our character's at, obscure, where it's coming from and really just give us, you know, just really hone in our focus to where it's supposed to be. We can just darken this bottom just a little bit more and just kind of get us even more into our really, so we have a little bit of sky back here but we have this really cool uh composition otherwise. Let me just, like this. Make a little bit of it a little bit harder than others. So it's not all soft. But yeah, so this is a really cool piece. Thank you to Sims for submitting this. I might even really quickly just do like it's really just spurting out of there. It's like coming right out. See this horse coming at you. Dark Knight, what you do? Oogle at how cool it looks. So yeah, before, after. We've just added a lot of contrast, bumped up the lighting, and made some of these anatomical bits look a little less confusing. Before, before, after. And we're just really building off of all of that I'm saying here is building off of the cool foundation that Simps submitted. So really, really cool. Um, awesome piece. I mean, I think you could argue that the head could come out a little bit more like this instead to break the silhouette, but I think it's just fine for now. I really like this piece. Thank you very much for submitting, and we'll get into another one. Yeah, this is really neat. This is really neat. Let me open up another one. Yeah, 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 yeah. The next one is from Pastel Mitzi. And this is a traditional art piece, so I'll do my best to draw over it digitally. It looks like we've got some watercolor, maybe acrylic that's been watered down, possibly some gouache. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening here, and it's a portrait. So I'm gonna do my best to not butcher this portrait. It's gouache? All right, yeah. The opacity is what cued me into it being gouache. I heard something fall. What did my cats do? Hold on. Let me look real quick. Hold on. Cats. I heard something. Okay. I don't know what my cat was doing. All right, and spam your favorite emotes in the chat. I'm stretching. Bow. Thank you. All right, hell yeah. So this comes to us by Pastel Mitzi. This is a gouache piece. For those of you that don't know what gouache is, it was traditionally a milk-based chalky paint. It is no longer milk-based. So though you can buy some pigments that are crafted as such, but the standard gouache isn't. But the one thing is that when you really build up gouache, you can see it here on the sleeve. This purple part looks like a matte, chalky, thick color. That is what gouache can offer you. You can get this nice matte depth to it, and then you can also thin it out and get these washes that are very watercolor-esque. And one of the benefits is that you can use water to pull some of that back, but you want to be very careful with how much you layer gouache because it will become hard to work with, and you can pull up your old layers of gouache and it just becomes kind of patchy and unhelpful as a material. Um, Ba ba. I recommend gouache if you're doing watercolor. If you're going to use an area that's a little bit more opaque and you want to build up some thickness, using gouache as a final touch would be really, really nice. If you would like some examples of what gouache and acrylic can do, I recommend looking up a lot of, excuse me, a lot of traditional backgrounds from Disney movies. They before the current era, they were all hand painted. So I'm gonna use Hunchback of Notre Dame as an example, because Hunchback and uh, Pocahontas had backgrounds made by the same crew. And let me show this copy image. All right, paste. Oh, perfect. Smallest fucking image ever. So this was done with gouache and acrylic. This background. All the backgrounds were done with gouache and acrylic. And with acrylic, you could also do washes of color, but they're very velvety. They're very matte, and that is what gouache can offer you. Acrylic being made of plastic, which is what acrylic is, can get very shiny, and especially when they're photographing and scanning these backgrounds, the gouache offers a nice even surface with low gloss, and it really just makes this really, like I said, velvety and unctuous feel. So you can do a lot. You can do a lot with gouache. And I see that you used it as a really nice watercolor substitute, but then you were able to build up in certain areas to get your details. You can build up with watercolor, but it just takes a lot more patience. It takes a lot more time, and it's really easy to fuck up. So kudos to doing like a traditional painting, painting hard. I really like the composition of this character, how they're leaning their head in their hands, and I really like the really vibrant colors that you used. This spot of can I oh, I'm turning my brush lower. This really bright lime green here is really fun. It kind of harkens to our background color here a little bit. Um, and the symbols on the face, like these designs are just really playful because your character here has what we can see is no hair, no eyebrows. And so by having a little bit more fun detail here and expressly, putting a lot more of expression in your eyelashes, you've brought attention to the eyes and added some fun detail to this character when the hair isn't there to help. So this is a really cool piece. I really like this. I like this a lot. One of the things is that it's very tightly cropped. So I feel like we could get a little bit more bang for our buck if our character just had oops, no, a little bit more breathing room, just a smudge. Not a lot, or on the opposite, we crop them in closer. If we're meant to be really close and tight to this character, we're like right here, like they're telling us a secret, we can get rid of any extraneous detail and really just bring it in super close to this character, like they're right here with us, or give them just a little bit more room to breathe so that we can get a striking silhouette against this brightly colored background. So let me just take your color here and let me rebuild some of this out here. I really like this choice of these like purpley blue outlines. I think those are really fun and really cool addition to just kind of set it apart from like the rest of the skin. Yeah, this would be a dope album cover. Absolutely. So let me just pretend that we have oops. Oh my god, Photoshop. Let's pretend that we have a little bit more shoulder back here and we've completed like this shape here. So now you have a little bit of breathing room. The whole entire top silhouette of your character is visible. We now have a really strong shape framed by your vibrant like citrine color here, and we can now really just see the full shape of this character's head. One of the things we could also do is bring out like the position of the fingers here so that there's a little bit more of like a point right here. Um, but yeah, no, this is a really, really cool piece. Literally just either crop it in close or give it more room. Either obviously too, it's a finished traditional piece, but this will also help in the future when you make more pieces. Oh my god, when you make more pieces, sorry, Photoshop is giving me guff. When you make stuff in the future, if you have extra space, so it's a little bit better to have more room than not enough, because if you were to frame this piece, you have a little bit of overlap with the mat, which is a piece of like cardboard or cardstock that can cover that edge, and then you can frame. It'll just keep it stable, it'll keep it secure. And so even if it's just extra like scrap paper that's around the outside, giving yourself more room rather than less will basically take a piece from looking unfinished or less skilled, and just literally giving it extra room on your canvas will make it look more confident and more complete. It's a really strange mind trick, but leaving the and also not making it too small, but giving it the appropriate amount of space so that it can be fit and framed and just have a little bit more breathing room. But for you, our biggest thing is that we're aiming to give this character's silhouette its own identity against this really bright background. And you did that already with that cool blue outline. You really separated it from that with that awesome outline. And now we have this full silhouette to help us. A fantastic point. I'm not the best at thinking ahead of choosing canvas. Obviously, not obviously. Obviously, this is already finished. I didn't want to say obviously to you saying that. That's not what I was trying to say. Obviously, this is finished and complete. But that's why we do critiques, so you can learn about it and think about it in the future. It is so, so valid, to not even think about that, and it's clearly you're working on something, you're making it, you're in the moment, you're very passionate, and it's an exercise, you're getting an idea out there, so not everything has to be the perfect polished piece, by no means. In fact, it's better to just make things when you wanna make them, how you wanna make them, and then you can look back and say, "You know what? Next time if I want a framed piece, I'll give myself extra canvas or extra paper." That's 100%. This is still an incredible piece of work. There are so many things that don't have frames that are in museums and galas and all sorts of things. So, a frame is just an extra. But if you ever want to show things in a gallery, having that extra space will make it easier for you to do that in the future. I really like the style of this piece. I really like the pose, and it reads really well. Like this person is laying their head in their hands, and we have this really cool. Like you've brought out some of the detail from the fingers. It's not. It doesn't seem like this was meant to be like super realism. It was just meant to bring out this person's features and showcase them in a bright and fun way. One of the things and again, one of the things with like paintings, especially, is that you can do this abstracted work and really push the boundaries. It's more so us seeing the material that you worked with. That's the difference between digital and traditional. I can see where you put your brush down. You have a thick circle here, and I can see where, that you probably put your brush down here and pulled it this direction because the pigment is thicker right here. That's stuff that you don't get in digital. Um, it's something that one of my professors called the artist's hand. So we would sketch and then paint over our sketch, and she would tell us that it's okay if our sketch showed up underneath, because that just shows her your artist's hand. So there's not really much that I feel would be right to critique in terms of like style and proportion. It's more so like technical application, which depends on your experience with the material and what you're trying to do with it. One of the things with the eyelashes is they are so much darker than everything else that it's really pulling, either intentionally drawing your attention to them with this dark black. This is directly black. Or it's removing our focus. It's making it look less harmonized with everything else because you very intentionally use this brown line art for the skin and then this blue outline as like a framing device. So either we tend to avoid black, and I think it would have been nice to use probably a really, really deep navy. So let me just kind of I'm gonna use a brush that's kinda rough to make it look a little less smooth. But yeah, using a dark navy instead, just pretend that I'm and that way it's still connected to this blue outline and it's a little less jarring compared to everything else. Just pretend that it's blue. And if we want, you know, it depends on if you want the character to be looking away, so they're thinking, they're very contemplative, or if you want them to be looking directly at your viewer. It really does just depend on your intentions, but for this piece. So if you would want this character to be looking right at our viewer, we can adjust our line of sight to meet our gaze. And I will take this color. There we go. So now our character, our model is looking more directly at us on this eye. Let's take this opposite eye and move it over toward us and make it a little larger. So now this character is looking right at us. And again, it really just depends on what your intention is for this character. Do you want them looking away? Do you want them looking up? Or it depends on what you're going for. But by having them looking directly at us, it brings us into the space with them, um, and is just another design choice, another artistic choice that you can make for, for this piece. It's not right or wrong either way. It's just literally infinite choices for you to be able to make. Um, how large was the original canvas? And was it something stretched? This looks like paper, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Looks like it was a paper material because the texture is very fine compared to a canvas, which would have been a woven material. But yeah, Mitzi, how large was this? Let me just kind of blur our edge a little. Let me grab this color and make it a little bit less. 11 by 15 inch sheet. Okay. Was this like watercolor paper in like a pad? I'll just do this. Yeah, hell yeah. Honestly, those are so much fun to work on. Cool. All right. Made that look a little less. All right. Yeah. So just by bringing the frame out, the size out, our whole head and hands can be framed by this really punchy yellow green color. And we've changed the eyes to look directly at our viewer just for some emotional connection. But if you don't want that, that's okay. You don't have to. One of the things I think we can take is add a little bit more contrast to this nostril here using that same dark brown that you have from the line art. I don't want to make it so dark that it just looks like you have holes in the head, but I just want to add a little bit more contrast. Oops, I added it on the wrong layer. Just a little bit more contrast so that we can really push those nostrils back away from us without making it look so dark that it's like crazy, you know what I mean? So before, after. And then we can take some more of this really pretty, almost like a cocoa brown color. And since this character does not have eyebrows, I see that you've indicated a little bit of the brow here with this line. But what we might be able to do is further separate the eyes. And again, this is all artistic intention. So if you want this really intense shape, go for it. You definitely drew the bridge out here. So, we could take a little bit of this. I think it needs to be a little warmer. Let me get rid of some of that. So we could define the bridge like this. So obviously, I'm using digital media. It looks a little rough. So we could add a little bit more definition like that underneath. Or, have the bridge of your nose dominate, where it's coming from. So here we have a little bit more, you can say before, after, we have a little bit more depth to the face. But if your intention isn't for like getting this depth, you might do the opposite. We drew out this nose. I want to focus on this shape that the nose is bringing us. I'm going to call attention to it. This is a feature that I want this person to have. I want this to be emphasized. So now I'll do the opposite. I will make it an artistic feature. I will call to attention the shape of their nose and the bridge of their nose, and I will make this more of part of the design. So we have like this lower part, we have the eyes are almost lighter now, and we're really drawing attention to them by framing them with this really pale area. And then you could also, extend that to other areas of the face, but now it becomes this really interesting uh connection of like soft and hard edge. And now we can probably try to do some of this. We're getting almost like a photo bash look with that. It's very strange. Like the eyes are very real, but the head is very stylized. But we could do something similar here with the hands. Really like push some of this depth and also mimic drawing out some of the anatomy by very intentionally adding this darker color to these
I thought
places.
mannequins were supposed to sit up straight.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. So now I'll sit up. So now I've even further lightened the center of the face, drew attention right here to the middle, and I added some really cool, like, I'll say architecture. I've made this look really intentional. I've given it some really funky shapes. Maybe I want to, take a little bit more of the highlight out here. But now, before, after, look at how much more we're looking at the face. And arguably, there's a little bit, it's more stylized in these aspects, but it's also looks a little bit more realistic, which is kind of crazy. Before, after, before, after. And that could really just be a wash. You could just go over with a wash. Um, I would just definitely lean into the stylistic, like people often think, "Oh, it's not realistic, so it's not valid compared to things that are realistic," and that's absolutely not true. And some people's style evolves because they don't know how to draw something or they don't have experience drawing something, but that just makes it more interesting to look at. So, really, like if this is something that you were just like playing around with and experimenting with, like I would lean into these things and explore them rather than feeling like it's not good enough or not right because these are really cool ideas. Like you're doing really cool stuff and your color choices and the abstracting, of these shapes and positions are really really neat. I really like it. So now, uh I guess the last thing, maybe darken some of the areas right around the purple to just punch it just a bit more. Going deep into that really vibrant blue purple that you have, just darken just a smidge. Nothing crazy. Just further pushing the hands in front, kinda giving us this interesting kinda whatever, um, kinda playing around with it, just further separating some of our things apart from one another and leaning into it. I'm gonna put that darkness right down here. But you have a lot of really cool ideas. This piece is really cool. Even the hyper realistic work of is it Han and Hubertus van Eyck? I don't know how to pronounce these names. Sorry, stylized, not 100% realistic. Yeah, realism can involve stylistic um, techniques and ideas because people exaggerate. You're an artist. You have the ability to use your artistic license to pull out features and things that you enjoy about the person or the item that you're drawing or the landscape that you're making. So if it's like, "Oh, these flowers are red. I'm going to punch up the red on the flowers and I'm going to make the rest very washed out and have very low contrast." And so low contrast is technically a flaw, but you are using it intentionally. That is your power as an artist to use that flaw, quote, quote, intentionally. I like this idea a lot. I wanna repaint the work. Someone stole it, so I no longer have the original. What the fuck? Somebody stole your artwork. What the fuck? Oh my god. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. What the hell? Damn. Well, if you do repaint this, I'd love to see it. I would love to see it. If you paint a painting of someone that is too real, can it steal your soul? Possibly. Can a painting that is too real come to life and kill you in Minecraft? I don't think so. But, you know, maybe stop reading the Edgar Allan Poe. So yeah, here's the after, before, after. We're really just bringing the attention right here to the middle. Really just honing it right to the center and bringing this character to face us. Let me actually grab the original, the full original, and put it back in here. So here is our original. Let me put it down at the bottom. Boink, boink. So here is our original and the new one. Original, new, original, new. So yeah, this was a really cool piece. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It really see I didn't really I don't consider us having fixed. We have just emphasized your piece. And this is all everybody here too. Everybody in the chat would have their own way of changing and growing off of your original idea. So, I mean, that's the cool part about being a person and making art. You can just kind of expand on each other's ideas. It's super super cool. And thank you for sharing. We're gonna get into the next one. I really like the colors. I think the colors are my favorite part. The next one is from Bubble Puppy of Mayrin. So let me open this. This is looks like a digital pen and ink piece. I really want it as a goddamn shoegaze album cover. That's kind of sick. What the fuck? Chalk Zone taught us. Yeah, yeah, Chalk Zone. I miss Chalk Zone. All right. Rename. Hi there, Bryans. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Hi, hi, hi. I'm your little butterfly. Oh, tired. How are you? My notebook, come back. Hello? Sometimes the doesn't want to work. Am I just gonna have my phone out the whole time? Okay. Jeepers. My God. Let me take a sip of my wah. And let me change the credit up top. So this is done by Bubble Puppy, who's been in chat for a bit. Looks like a digital pen and ink piece. Good, and you? I'm doing great. Um, we're doing art critiques today. This one comes to us from Bubble Puppy. Let me save this. Perfect. So this piece is in the style of etching and lithography, which is with stone. This could have been etching from a copper plate. There's a lot of very fine etch work that is what makes the 1800s print style very, somebody used tools to carve into a material that would hold ink that they could print onto a paper of some sort. So we're going for a very historical vibe for this character, and it looks like there is a very specific backstory for either this historical figure, if they are a real historical figure, or a very personal meaning. There's embroidery. This person was probably a nurse because looks like there is an old glass syringe back here, and the smock as well kind of gives the impression that either they were a nurse or a maid, as it says Maid Marin up there, or Myrene. I'm not sure of the pronunciation for this person's name, but yeah. So we're given a very historical look through the character themselves, the technique that was chosen, and some of the set dressing around the character. There's a lot of really intentional things here, like the one candle being burnt out, the embroidery, the syringe, and things that we just don't have context for, but we can tell that they're meaningful for this person, for this character. And these are often found on like tombstones. Yeah, Edward Gorey, a very prominent illustrator for the golden era of illustration. If you think of like these old print style pieces, you're probably thinking of the golden age of illustration around turn of the century, late 1800s into the early 1900s. Lots of media kind of came about that. And we're also, so this is called hatching, and it is a way to define value through lines out of necessity because they were using a printmaking process, whether it was etching or lithography. They were using printmaking to imply value. So they would put more lines where they wanted more ink to draw, which would then make it look darker. And visually, the closer lines are together, the more solid they look for us. So it's also kind of, touching on impressionism. So if you think of, like, Vincent van Gogh, Van Gogh was an impressionist painter, did a bunch of colored dots next to each other, which is actually very similar to modern, like, inkjet printers. Um, but yeah, a lot of colored dots next to each other that made a picture when you kinda stood away. So if I zoom out of this, you can see that, the dress is appearing as a gray color to us, but when we zoom in, it is a series of very intentional hatching. And you can see here that you can also pointillism, and impressionism are 2 different things, but they play, together. Pointillism is where you're using points, impressionism is where you're giving the impression of something. But pointillism is a specific technique within uh, impressionism, but pointillism is using dots specifically. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so you can see here too that the direction of our lines has changed to show the direction of the cloth. And that is also a very cool technique. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting techniques, very inspired by printmaking. And I think it's a really cool and interesting composition. It's very traditional. So we have almost like a vignette of this character here seated between these two framed, these carved framed areas here. The one thing is that I can see that these were definitely pulled from another asset. The color and quality are slightly different, but that's not so much of a problem as it just something I noticed. Same thing with the banner here. It is from something else as well. So if you were ever to revisit this piece, though obviously a ton of work has gone into the main part of the piece, I would recommend remaking these filigree pieces in your same technique and style so that it matches with your piece more specifically. Same thing with the banner. We have another color and treatment, but obviously these are very small nitpicky things. They aren't a problem. In fact, there is just so much work with this main character that I would totally have done the same thing because there's just so much to fucking put up there. It's so much time and energy, but you've given us the composition and the idea. It doesn't take away from it. It's just a very small detail that probably most people wouldn't have a problem with. Historian have a collection of Victorian art, use it to frame banner specifically. Hell yeah, yeah. So these are definitely doing the job. They don't subtract away, they don't distract away. I just like what you were giving us so much here that I wish that all the other stuff was also in the same hand that the rest was, but it's not a fault, it's not a bad thing. It is just a note. Um, one of the things here that I guess if we wanted to go into depth with would be the fabric here at the bottom. But again, fabric's also very tricky because, you know, just depending on how somebody's sitting, there's a lot of fabric. Um, so it might mean that this is just the way the reference was. It looks like fabric, it feels like fabric, it's not a problem, but we could probably pose it a little bit more to give us a little bit more of a composition with her legs and not lose them so much. She's very purposefully posed, which is a something that would happen in old portraits and photography and printmaking. So she is very proper. She's sitting very proper. She's on one of these very traditional, like U-shaped stools. So all of this is very intentional. This is super, super intentional. There weren't any reference I used for that. I appreciate the leeway. Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Fabric's fucking hard, and also even in photography, like you're looking at a photograph of it, it won't look correct anyway. So one of the things that we can do is we can further push out and find where her legs are so that we can just build the fabric up around her legs. So we're going to say she's got a torso. She is a slightly larger lady, but not large by any means. But we don't want to subtract away from her frame. We don't want to make her look too small. She's also got lots of layers of clothing. So we can say here that we've got the chest. We've identified that the arm is coming from here, the bust, everything is, she looks proportionate. We're using this as a way for us to bring out the legs. So now,
Sip sip.
sip, sip. Thank you. Thank you. I just study a lot of historical stuff. Yeah, there's tons. Can I share a link? Sure. So I'm going to define where her pelvis is, and I'm going to find where about the base of her leg, based on what I can infer about how wide her torso is. We can infer that her leg and knee are going to be a little bit larger. They're not going to be so small. So I'm just kind of bringing out the leg. There's also perspective to keep in mind, um, and the ankle. We can probably say that her ankle would sit about here, or we could have it here, and the heel, it would be a little bit further down. Yeah, the skull pattern, is seen a lot on tombstones. It's very, very traditional for tombstones. So, and with the syringe and with the flowers, this is giving, and also potentially nurse adjacent imagery. Thanks for being a super chopper. We can see that this character is very familiar with death, and the expression being very dour also kind of offers that to us. So all this really subtle imagery. So here I'm kind of pulling out her calf would be here, her thigh would be here. And now we can see here that your fabric is following that. We might be able to adjust it slightly to bring this knee out just a little bit further to follow this direction of the stool and make it look less like her knee is facing us because it probably wouldn't be. But this isn't a very large correction. It's really, this is mostly a foundation so that we can define where our fabric needs to fall. Another thing is that if you are working on a piece where a character is in very complicated clothing, it will be so easy to just start drawing the clothing first, but by doing so, you will lose the body underneath. So, and that's not really what's happening here. I'm just using this as a foundation to make notes on the fabric. Old portraits table is used to show people's hobbies. Yeah, absolutely. This was digital. I can see from the pen work that it was digital. So now we have this near leg and we've got it looking about how it would, how it should compared to the torso. And the far leg can be posed in a lot of different ways. So this, let me use a different color for the far leg. Again, we're just trying to build up a foundation from which I can do the notes for the fabric, or at least have some more ideas about the fabric. So the knee, we can see there's a knee here. So she's sitting very properly with her knees together. So that is definitely a pose that works. We can either assume that her ankle is back here, but we don't know because it's being obscured. In then that case, would the fabric now be hitting the top of her shoe? Would we see a little bit? And then is the toe too far pointed toward us? So would it need to be, back here a little bit more? These are all questions that you can answer for yourself by doing anatomical sketch underneath, and trying to see that her toes would be pointed in about the same direction. However, her leg could also be tucked up behind. So it really is just a matter of your intention. So if I tucked her leg, let's say I tucked her one ankle behind the other, that is also something that, is possible and looks completely fine. So it really just depends. But by having an understanding of what is underneath, you'll have an easier time building off of the stuff on top. So I would probably try to lower that knee, which is still falling where you have it on the piece. So now we have our structure, which is very similar. It's the same as what has already been put here. So now let me use that structure to build off of. So I'm going to use red. So we have the waistband here, and this is going to be the tightest area of our apron. So we're going to just continue that. And we can see here that the apron extends past the top of the smock. So this is the top of the smock. We can see here that it goes over around the chest. So it does make sense that it is out over here, but I might lower where it's coming from. Let me put something on top so it's a little easier to see. A little easier to see. Let me make that a little lighter. Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, by lowering this white area right here from the far side of the smock, we're just adding a little bit more uh, definition to this space here. And also, it is continuing out from about the same spot, and we can see that it's tied in the back here. One of the things is that you can see that this uh, pleating is happening. It's puckering from where the larger amount of fabric is being sewn into a smaller part of the waistband, which adds this decorative flair. If we want the material to look a little thicker, we can bring it out a little farther so that it is given this very specific pucker shape. Um, and it just gives it a little bit of shape. Uh, Again, not anything wrong with how it is because as long as you can tell what the intention is, you can see what it is very much a smock. It reads very well. These are all just small detail things. There's also a lot of fabric at the bend of the body, so we wouldn't want it to follow exactly the top of the leg. So this is also, very correct. One of the things is that if the knee is poking through your fabric, there's going to be a lot of tension from that knee. It'll probably radiate outward from the knee, depending on, I like looking at dresses and pant legs and things. And we can see here that this smock and this fabric is being pushed up and around this leg. So either we have it smooth, kind of like the far side, or we fully like commit to it being bent around a different way. So it's something where like maybe, maybe it's fully over further, you know, and we have more of the black underneath. Oops, need this color just a little bit. Something like this, you know, so that it's almost as if it's been like twisted, like she's trying to get out of the chair. She maybe that's part of her story. Who knows? It adds a little bit of interest rather than it being super smooth and super perfect. Um, or you could do the opposite direction where it's, far over like it is here. Um, and then for these, we're losing a little bit of the shape of the leg underneath. But there's so much fabric that it really is at this point, artistic interpretation. But the bottom of her leg is here. We have a lot of fabric that's coming to the front. So maybe we pinch some of it here, and instead of it coming up over the side of her leg, it's poking out from under her leg. She's smoothed her gown up under her leg, and now there's a bunch of it that is just coming out of the side here, onto the floor, around her knee, almost as if it's been bent in half because she smoothed it up under her leg rather than pushing it out of the sides. But it just depends. This isn't a wrong, this isn't a fault. It is just a different way. But yeah, so all these things are really cool, and I think the piece was done very well. I really like this piece. I think it is pretty awesome. So I'll leave this here as an example. But really, Other than that, you could do some intentional posing to some of the fabric to give it some of these like swoopy, but this is a very practical character. She's not meant to be a glamorous character. This is a character that is very salt of the earth, very practical. So doing too much dramatic, you know, futzing with some of the details doesn't seem appropriate, doesn't seem right. So I think this character is well done. Really cool piece. I think yeah, I like how intentional your design choices are. And I'll keep this background a little bit darker so it's a little bit easier to see what I drew, but these are all just interpretations. Heck yeah. Thank you so much for submitting. It is 8 o'clock. We've been going since 3. I have, let's see. Let me see. I have 5 more left to do. I'm gonna do 2 more to see how I feel after the 2 of them, and if it ends up going a little longer, then I might continue this tomorrow. I have tomorrow off, um, so I might be able to continue this tomorrow or just incorporate the others into our next submissions for the following month. Uh, that way, because there's so much involved with these art critiques, I'm getting tired. So, want to make sure that I can still give you good quality critique and like actually give you the attention that you deserve for the pieces that you submitted. So next up, we have syrup.
Thank you, Mandy, for my life.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate you submitting your piece. So this is up next. This is from Syrups, aka Syrup. Let me open this. I'm going to give this a background so we can see it better. Boink. This is a really cool piece. Let me change the text up top. Hi Grace, how are you? Welcome in. Properties. There we go. Paste. Lovely. I'm doing great. I'm getting a little tired, but we're doing some art critiques today. And I chose so Syrup actually sent quite a few. And I chose this one because I really enjoyed all of Syrup's art that they submitted was really good. I liked all of it. Um and so this one I pulled out just to do a lighting example. Syrup has a really from the pieces that they submitted, um yeah, I'm doing art critiques today. If you have anything that you would like to submit, feel free. Anything will be for the next round of critiques, which I do these monthly. So, if I don't get to somebody's in one, I will always get to it to the next time. But yeah, Syrup has a very clean render style, a very minimal line style, as opposed to I tend to do really thick lines. But this is a really awesome illustration style that they have, and they have a really strong grasp of lighting. You can see here also that they have a really solid grasp on color. This is an example of using complementary colors to make a piece. You're not only using green and red, but this is predominantly green versus this nice magenta color, this cool mint green versus soft, warm magentas and purples. And so we've been given a really cool uh color scheme that's very simple, but it's very effective. So with this, I only really wanted to talk about extra lighting that could really just push this over the edge. And this is all personal taste. It's not anything uh, it's not anything crazy, but I really like to show examples of different types of pieces at different types of skill levels so that you can see that like it's really just your own interpretation and taste, but there are always like little tweaks that you can do to just further just pump it up from 11 to 8,000 or 80,000 to 90,000. You know what I mean? So all I wanted to do was just have an excuse to put extra lighting on this piece, which has really good lighting. So one of the things that I'm seeing with this piece, again, already has really solid lighting. But let me grab a contrasting color. This area here ends up getting lost just a smudge with the tree. This is where we're seeing the nice warm light that what we said earlier, guys, your environment sending color onto your character. Well, here we go. And you can see even there's a little bit of it down here too. The environment is defining the light color that's hitting our character. So this is all correct, 100%. And it's actually helping us in areas like this where it is defining the edge against everything else. And it's most, in my opinion, it is most successful here on the arm. Really, really bringing that arm away from all of the stuff. And you can see a really good lighting technique here. The shadow that's falling, that's the shoulder casting shadow on these beads. And you can see it up here too. Really good stuff, really good technique. So anything I say is purely just extra. It's not, you know, it's not a negative. So one of the things that I would love to do is push this character even further away with a slightly lighter. I'll keep it kind of warm as well. Maybe the tone of the sky here, brighten it up. And I'm really just further pushing this character away from this background. I'm really selling this harsh rim light to just get this character up and away from the background. I'm going with a color that is still appropriate for the environment that they're in, so I'm not trying to do some neon nonsense. I don't know if Syrup's in here right now, but if they are, I'd love to hear from them. So here I am, I'm just bringing out this rim light here to just really sell that this is separated. I'm trying to maintain that pink as well. I don't want to get rid of that. I don't want to compromise the detail. I'm trying to pull it out. So now you can see here that just by adding this slight, and I'll zoom out in a second, but just by adding this slight amount of this warmer contrasting color that's still appropriate for the environment, for the background, I'm pushing this character even further off of all that pink, but maintaining that nice pink in the rest of the shadows. So let me pull away, and I think I could even go a little lighter in these really intense areas. So let me I'll make a clipping mask here, and let me just even more, just even brighter. Okay, so now let me show you. Here is the before and the after. Before, after. And you can see that just a subtle change has pushed this character off of that background before, after, before, after. And you can stylize it. I mean, this is part of your artistic license. You can and should stylize things to let them be more legible. Real life will have things that look out of contrast and kind of whatever anyway. So use your artistic license to make things legible, and make things look nice. At the end of the day, just whatever ends up working, whatever looks nice, is the way you can and should go. So let me just use some of that same color to just push a little bit further, get a little bit off of that pink, because now we're coming up across some of these areas where our color of our lighting on the character is meshing with the color of our background. And so we can use a slightly different color that's still part of the background to further push this character up and away. So, um, really, really cool. Let me grab this really cool character art. Really like it. Just kind of dusting it with a little bit. And look at how much like interest is added by maintaining this pink and then adding this little bit of like a dusty orangey color on top of it. It just there's so much more interest now in just those little subtle spots. But it really is just a small before, after, before, after. Just a small change makes such a huge difference. And now I want to do the same here. They already, like I said, they already have a really awesome lighting skill. Like they know how to light things. And so now I want to just even further push that top of the face just a little bit more. Never got my license though. I failed the written part of the artist test. That's not true. An artistic license is just inherent. So let me add a dusting of this color now to the face up here. Just pulling it out a little bit more. Like the tops of these cheeks are getting a little bit more of this light. The brow, or rather the bridge of the nose is gonna get a lot more of this. So let me just push that out, and then of course this area here on the nose ring and the lower lip. Not so much the upper, but the lower. I'm building off of the foundation that Syrup set for us. So I'm really not trying to change. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but these areas of the face that are more top facing, this way, I'm just adding some of this rosy color to those areas that are facing upward and just giving it a little bit more. Now you can see before, after, we get a little bit more of the features of the face before, after, and we're just pulling them out just a little more. In fact, here I might add a little bit more to the forehead just to match. But yeah, no, before, after, super subtle, super, super subtle, um, but really effective. And again, I want to kind of include some of this pink color over here as well. So let me do a little bit of that here. Again, Syrup already has a really strong attention and skill with lighting, so I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. They know what they're doing and their piece is good. So it's not, these are all really just small extras to just push this character further off of our background. We're going to add a little bit here. Just again, further off the background. We're incorporating them into the scene, which they're already very much incorporated into. Just little bits, nothing crazy. Maybe a little bit of this up here as well. Just further breaking up some of these areas that are kind of dark and making them less dark, giving the impression that they are facing up towards that light source. So yeah, so now we have, and also too, I want to give a little bit again, areas where the color is very similar and it's getting a little dark, just adding a little bit of that lighting there, a little bit more, and just punching it up to 11. So now we have this piece here, and we have the before and the after. Before, after. Very subtle. Very subtle, but very effective at just really pushing this character up off of that background. In fact, one of the things that I would recommend as well would be to blur some of the background to give it more of a parallax effect. Bring even more attention to our really cool character. We get the trunk back here. So the trunk is starting off really close to us, and it's got this really cool perspective of it like going up into this background here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to add a little bit of a blur. It's going to be a little tedious, but I'm going to just try to give it a little bit of blur, just a smidge. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but there's so much incredible detail here that I don't want us to lose. Obviously, too, we have the top the one thing, though, is that we do have the top edge of this piece here, that we don't want blurred, so that is a bit of a challenge, but we can maintain the look of that canopy, uh, and just blur everything inside of it instead, um, and leave the exterior raw so that it's still giving us, what looks to be the top of a sticker or a print. We don't want to lose that so much. So I've selected here some background, and let me just blur it a little bit. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but again, we have a lot of detail in the front, a lot of detail in the back, and if I just very subtly take my not that much, my my blur just a little bit, and I'm gonna take my soft brush and I'm gonna let it have a little bit more detail where it's closest to us. Now take a look at this. Oops. Let me group this. Before, after, before, after. It's very, very subtle, but we are just further pushing our character. This is before, after. We're just bringing more attention to our character, and giving them a bit more presence off the background there. I'm gonna do a little bit more of that where I'm mainly aiming to just further differentiate the color of the background versus the lighting on the item while maintaining it, just really giving it this nice crisp edge. I'm even just gonna take crisp, crisp edge. That pale orangey color we used before, maintaining the pink, by the way. I'm not trying to get rid of that pink, but really just hammering it home with a little bit of that bright, bright light, and it just pushes it up off of that background ever so slightly. In fact, I might just use this brighter pink here because now it's orange over here. So, you know, we might have to adjust, but it's a little bit easier to see what's going on over there because we have a light against a dark, whereas this we need the light against the dark over here as well. Before, oh, here we go. Hold on. Before, after, before, after. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Before, after. But yeah, really, really cool. And the last thing I'd like to do is see more of this mint lighting just hitting this character. You can see that there's this really soft mint that's like coming up. So, and also to the direction of the shadows here. So, like the fact that the shadows are here on the top of the arm gives us the impression that this character is being lit from down here. Let me make a big brush. Our character has light coming from here, the magic, and also has a different light and a softer environmental light coming from the back. Really cool. And I just want a little bit more of that mint color on the bottom of the character to really hammer home that the light is just coming from underneath. So we're going to put a little bit here on the bottom of the shirt where the breasts are, because they are going to be catching a lot of light. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. I'm not trying to make, I'm not trying to do anything nutso with this, but really just capturing some of that really intense color if we can. One, two, three. Getting some of it that is facing down towards that light. Just give it a little bit more. There we go. See, just a little bit, and I might even lighten this a little with a clipping mask. I'm going to take a white and just kind of, actually, I want that green still, but a little bit lighter there. And we're also now pulling out some of the form. There's so much awesome form work that's being done here, uh, that we're now addressing some of the areas that are looking a little flatter so that they get just as much attention and form, um, as the other areas have. So then we're going to just, again, we're going to address the areas that are facing down towards our magical light here. The underside of the chin is gonna catch some more of this. It's not gonna be as bright because obviously, um, this character is a little bit further from this magical source. But again, I'm just trying to add a little bit of it so that we're really just hinting that this magical light is adding color to this white, especially because it is a white garment or a really pale garment. We are just further emphasizing um, that color that this magic is casting. And so now I want a little bit of it, and you can already see, look, you can see that really subtle green happening. I just want a little bit more of it to really push the areas that have been flattened and just give them just a extra, it doesn't need to be anything wild. It really doesn't. Really subtle. I'm not trying to make this look super hyper crazy, but now we've just given this character just a little bit more definition in this green, this really ghoulish green, but in this case, it looks more like nature rather than like evil, if that makes sense. There's just so much to love about this piece, and now I'm even gonna just pull out some of this hair here, push it up off of the background, or do a little bit of the ear here. Oops. Again, not too much. I'm not trying to make it look because the light can only cast so far, but we are just trying to emphasize that this character, has this glow. Actually, let me just do the opposite side. There we go. Just a little something there. So yeah, so I really just wanted to comment on this one for like lighting purposes. In this case, I might just darken the stuff underneath to make this lighting pop even just a little bit more. So let me just like, like if you oops, if you darken the shirt underneath, it would change a little bit how vibrant this lighting is. But yeah, so this was really just me wanting to play around with the lighting of this piece. Here's the before, here's the after, before, after. We blurred a little bit of this background. We added this harsher rim light to really get this sunset color on the character and push them away from our background because we were getting a lot of those pinks. But yeah, really cool piece before, after. And we redefined some of this bottom part of the face with this mint green color. Before, after. So really cool piece, and it just goes to show that like every skill level, every style, there's always a little bit extra you can do, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't a good piece. You know what I mean? It's a awesome piece. Very much enjoy being able to work on something like this. Um and yeah, on to the next one. Let me give my hand a little break and my neck a little break. I think what I'll do is I'll go to 9 p.m. my time. That'll be a 6-hour stream. So we will probably not finish all of these. So what I'll do is I will wrap up the ones into the next critique so we don't miss any of them. Yeah, so we're on to the next one. Thank you so much to Syrup for sending this in. Really cool. The next one we have four more.
Remember to drink some water,
Thank you,
Mandy.
Scuba. Thank you, Scuba. The art critique streams are always really long and are really crazy on my hand and my voice. So thank you guys for being flexible and being chill also too, especially with the crash that happened earlier. God damn. Probably just need to honestly just need to update need to update OBS. My goodness. Also, hold on. Let me take a look at something. I get these notifications about like views on YouTube and our honk tutorial. Let me take a look. The honk tutorial has made it to 9,500 views. My god. Thank you guys so much for the views and things on the honk tutorial. It's been so long since I played WoW. This one takes me back. Oh yeah, this does look World of Warcraft to me, mostly because of the symbols. All right, so the last one we have today. The other ones will be moved on to the next critique. This next one is from Moody, Stressed Modern Artist. Let me grab this. We will open it with Photoshop. Beautiful. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And let me take a sippy of my water. We'll just do that. Okay. So this is a really cool I chose that you sent a lot of really good ones, and I chose this one because I had some ideas. Like I got all these cool ideas. So I really like the color palette of all of the things that you sent to me. Hold on, I'll sip sip. So yeah, I really like the color palettes. These muted, restricted palettes are very atmospheric. They're super trendy. I also like that it seems that you got either photographs of these sticky notes or you sourced them from somewhere else. And the brush that you used really does give the impression that you used like a marker, like a semi dry marker on these sticky notes. They add a very interesting flavor to the piece and this almost mixed media kind of vibe. So I actually wish that you did more of that. Um I like the idea of this paper texture coming back. So whether the circle in the background had that same paper texture, that would be really fucking cool. Let me try to emulate that if I can. And then also too, leaning into that a bit more, it could be really cool if you had elements that looked like it was a sticky note that was pasted in a sketchbook and then drawn over. I have a friend who does a lot of traditional work in sketchbooks, and when something doesn't work out right, they will put down a sticky note and then draw over top of it. So now you have this really cool layered effect um, of the sticky note having a different surface than the rest of the notebook, and also the sticky note has a different color, and so then it's been drawn over, so now you have this really cool layered effect, and it's kinda cool, kinda dope. So let me see if I can't find a, like, paper texture, and really just lean into giving this more textures. Um, Copy image. So I'm gonna take this random paper that I found on the internet and I'm gonna just put it back here and I am going to it's clipped in and I am going to set this to something like overlay and I'm gonna drop its opacity down a couple smidges because I don't want to compromise that color. In fact, I kinda like the lightness that it brought in the back, but it's kind of fighting the pink, that dusty color. It's kind of fighting with it. So maybe overlay might not be what I want here. Hard light. Yeah, this is a really cool piece. And in fact, I could instead of having just the circle be in paper texture, I could have the whole background have this paper texture. But I just happened to select the so let me kind of grab the oops, let me grab this pinky purple color and release yes, copy, paste, merge that together. So now we have our put clipping mask again and let me make it larger. So now we have this paper texture here on the background, and we have this really cool sticky note kind of situation. So yeah, I think you could lean into the sticky note thing. I know that it probably was meant to be, he says that it's for somebody from you. So it's kind of like, oh, I made this and I'm leaving this note so that you know that I made this for you. It's a really cool idea and I like the idea with your limited palette. I think it could be really neato to do that in more places. And play with like it impacting your color. So maybe if you wanted to have less of a limited color scheme, you had like a oops, let me put this over top. You have another sticky note here that is, also put here and or if it needs to be the same size as these, uh but maybe you have this and on the sticky note it's like, "Oh, I'm making a correction to something." So now you have your same like pen color and now you go over as if it's being drawn. I might make it even a slightly different color. And you're now, adding details that wouldn't be there, but they're continuing from what you had before. And it's just kind of making this really interesting vibe, and then, of course, you have this shadow underneath your sticky note that gives it, like, a presence above everything else, breaks it up, makes it look kinda multiply, let me there you go. So there's like, you can oops, Photoshop, damn. It was Art Fight Attack. Last year, I had made the backgrounds look like notebook paper and drew everything in a sketchy kind of brush. Yeah, that's awesome. I fucking yeah, and I can see that. I love that. So yeah, having these sticky notes become part of your composition is a really fun way to like add interest. And now these sticky notes don't look like they're so alone now that you have one over here. Hi Jeannie, how are you? So yeah, this is all just like flavor. Literally, it doesn't have to you don't before, after. It's not a critique, it's more so extra flavor. Happy New Year. Hi, Sinklin. Hi, 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 I don't need to butterfly. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Hi. I hope you're doing well. Happy New Year. And so yeah, this is just an idea. This isn't you don't have to actually, act on this. It's not a critique in terms of like making it better. This is just other things that you can do with this idea. And then it's like how much of the mixed media do you want to get into? Is it like, "Oh, I've drawn this in a notebook." Oh, thanks for letting me stretch. Everybody, emotes. Show me your favorites. I'm stretching my shoulders real good. I'm hungry. Thank you. All right. So yeah, so this is something where it's like, okay, how much mixed media do you want to do? Maybe, there's an empty side to the composition. Maybe there's like a coffee ring, maybe it's like you put your cup of, you put your paint cup, you put your paint cup down and left like a ring in the corner. Maybe there's like a paper clip here at the bottom, you know, holding something else in place. So like you can really it makes me think of your soft color palettes make me think of like A Little to the Left, which is a really fun organizational game. Um but yeah, so there's just so much that you can do with, this mixed media kind of vibe that and you can also just find stuff online too, like a coffee ring PNG. Oh yeah. Here's one. Copy, paste. So you can just find this. I'm going to set it to multiply so it looks like the coffee has dripped into our paper. So you can do something like this. Just quickly find it online. I'm going to subtly blur it so it's not so harsh, but it's also not blurred enough that the integrity of the texture is lost. And I'm going to lighten it up just a smudge. Just so it's not like a huge distraction. But like, if you like this kind of vibe, also makes me think of Little Big Planet, where there was just all these different materials and things. So if you like that kind of thing, and if that's kind of interesting, I'd say like lean into it. You know, do this like mixed media found material kind of vibe. And fill up some of that empty space with things that add to your vibe that you're going for. um, the only other thing, I guess, like, technically, is that I love this blue outline, this hyper pop blue outline, but sometimes here in the head, it's getting a little lost. So, you could lighten up that color, but then you compete with your background, and you lose how cool and vibrant that color is. So maybe we could make this black color a little cooler. It's kind of in a warm area now. So if I let's copy, paste. There we go. So if I turned this into a more blue color, it's taking my it's taking the turtleneck with it. Or you could simply just use something called a levels layer, excuse me. And levels will allow you to pick out the dark spots and move like the medium and the light. So if it is already a piece that's been finished and you want to kind of adjust like where it falls, you can do that. You can play around. Of course, I'm sure your art was more separated than I'm just using a flat image. Um, but if I got rid of that, you can see that the texture, the contrast is a little bit different here with just having a levels layer. You could also do a curves layer. Um, but that just makes the blue much more vibrant, kind of brings out some of these light colors and makes things a little bit more legible. And that you could just add to the entire piece. Um, and yeah, aside from that, like I said, the sides feel a little empty, but by just adding some other stuff into it, I like how centered this character is, but they're kind of like off to the side. It's kind of cozy. And you mentioned having the like notebook paper vibe. So then I would just do other things that make this character or make this it fit what we're doing here. So, have the sticky notes in other places. Maybe they're a thematic element. So maybe there's a sticky note here that is, let's say, like a really soft pink color, and you draw hard on it, you know, using your same awesome blue color, maybe a little bit less. And now you can, like, now it's a thematic thing. Obviously, the heart's on the wrong side of the chest, but I didn't want to cover your shark. I really like the shark. So yeah, having stuff like this, adding maybe the coffee stain is up here instead, or maybe the I almost said toothpick, the paper clip, maybe that's up here, you know, just kind of adding some other varied interest to your piece and playing off of a really cool idea of, obviously it's an idea that I ran along with. You don't have to take it with a grain of salt, but like, oops, before, after, before, after. Now we're kind of playing with introducing these other colors that don't necessarily take away from the piece itself with its limited color palette. They're just adding some other areas of interest. Uh, but yeah, this one was really cool, and thank you so much. I loved all the ones that you sent. So thank you so, so much for sending this one in. We have 20 minutes, so it looks like I could still do one more before we pass our pretzels. Thank you so much. And again, I might not send them out right away after stream, but just know that for those of you that I went over today, I will be sending them to you. Of course. Yeah, thank you so much. This is awesome. I like this character a lot. It's really cute. I like the pose. I didn't talk enough about the composition. I started adding a bunch of little doodads and things, but I really just liked what you had here. So I was just adding. I like the little shark earrings too, how they look like they're biting the ears. All right. So the last one, we have 3 left. So the last one that I'm going to do is kind of a different one. This one is Versive's one, Versive verse. I'll just say verse. And it looks like it is manuscript text that was done by hand. So let me open this up, and I don't so much have experience in it. I only have uh knowledge via, art history that I've learned throughout my schooling and such. So this will be less of a critique, but more of just talking about it. So it's still good to show this kind of stuff and talk about it. But yeah, for those of you that don't know very much about um, pen work and calligraphy in this style, feel free, Verse, to like talk more about it in the chat. But this is achieved via a very specifically shaped pen tip and a lot of practice. A lot of practice, a very steady hand, and using maybe you angle the desk. There were a lot of angled desktops, but the tip of the pens have very flat, and then they make this really specific shape. And so, either it's an artificial pen tip or it is a quill that has been cut. Yeah, this one's done with a goose quill. Yeah. So you made an angled writing desk. Yeah. So having it at just the specific angle and holding your pen tip, you can see the direction that the pen tip is being held in. This is the direction, this flat tip here. And by very carefully like I'll kind of emulate. Let me see if I have a flat tipped brush. It won't look the same, but let me see if I can't find something. I don't think I have anything like that right here, but let me see. This one has an odd. Okay, so this one's kind of odd, but you can kind of see that I have a flat. It's very weird. I have to hold my pen at a very strange angle. So by holding, just having it be flat, bringing it down, and swooping, it's very intentional. There's a lot of thought that goes behind this writing, and it's very stylistically pleasing because of that very strict set of conditions that you use to write. And that's why it's very hard to do. It's if it were easy, everybody would still write this way. But these were a lot of manuscript writing, calligraphy like this were for very important books, very important texts. And so you would have whole monasteries full of monks uh, dutifully recreating books before print existed, by hand, and it would take hundreds of hours, if not thousands. The curls at the end of the R are done by turning the pen so that only the corner of it touches the paper. Yeah, so you can see here it's a very specific motion of the hand. Um, and it's very consistent. You can see here that the consistency is crazy. That's just a lot of practice. And this is a really good metaphor. Um, for other art. So things that take a lot of muscle memory, things that take a lot of practice with your materials, understanding that you can, for example, use the side of the quill instead of the flat edge of the quill gives you even more options for the future. So if any of you are struggling with art and it's just not turning out how you want it to, no matter what it is, whether it's calligraphy or illustration, it really just comes with practice and knowing your materials, which is something that just comes in time. So give yourself the grace of being able to take the time to learn this stuff because I mean this is just discipline, it's just practice. Um, and but it's done really well. You can see that the angle is very consistent, it's so intentional. I can even see here, very faintly, it's super hard to tell, but it looks like there's a very gentle score line here to maintain the alignment of the text on the paper. A score line here, a score line here. There's another one here. Very faint. There's one here too. Here, here. Yeah, so you could align it. I see it now. It's very, very faint. Yeah, paper is scored with a metal stylus. There you go. Yeah. So and look at how like obviously my lines are kind of fucked, but like that was, even just getting ready to write, even preparing to write took measurement. You can even see the score lines continue down here as well. Technique that was done back in the Middle Ages. Yeah, absolutely. So the spacing continues. We have, an equal spacing here. I'll use a different color. This distance here is the same distance. I'll use the bottom of the Q. That's the same distance from top to bottom. And I'm betting that like the edge of our text here is about the same as the edge of our text here. Look at that. So very intentional. Just setting this up took time and energy and effort. Whoa, Hex! Hey! Oh my god! Thank you so much for subscribing 21 months. My god. Thank you so much. What the heck? We're almost to 2 years, guys. Oh. Ooh. It just reminds me that I only have a couple months to do my stuff. All the stuff I want to do, but thank you so much for resubscribing. I appreciate it. So yeah, this is just really fucking cool. Look at my baby. That's me. I'm your baby. The piece is a result of doing it a couple times. Yep, that's also a huge lesson to learn is like doing it over and over until it turns out right. That there's no shame in doing that. In fact, that's such a good way to learn. I would love some background on the text. Yes, please. Feel free. I would love that. Thank you so much for subscribing. Wrist tired, shoulders tired, back whack. Water drank. But yeah, so this is really cool, and I'm really happy that you sent it in. It's very different than what what we usually cover, but it's really fucking cool. It's a song from the 15th century in medieval French. It's a very sad love song. Oh, here, I might be able to find a translation for it. Mille song by that is crazy. All right, let's see. Wonderful. The lyrics are I still regret 1,000 times my flight. I left behind your loving disposition. Great is my grief and sorrowful contrition, and soon my days will fade into the night. Damn! 4K pretzel points, I have power. Yeah, you do. You can shit your pants at least a couple times. Yeah, hell yeah. If you have a link, feel free to send it so other people can read it. But, oh, this is really fun, and thank you so much for sending it in. We have 2 more that are gonna carry over to the next one just because I am
Aww.
Aw, yeah, because 'cause I'm feeling it, Mr. Krabs. Um, but we will be passing our pretzels over to somebody. I wrote this while I was, in intense heartbreaks. Golden. Listen. I can't explain how awful the combination of reading a very heartfelt message and just you shitting your pants. What a strange combination we've just experienced here today. Wow. Oh, thank you so much for the link. Hell yeah. Thank you so Well, y'all, thank you again. I will send you guys your stuff if you had things done today. I don't know if I'll be sending it tonight, but I will send it when probably tomorrow. I have off tomorrow, so I have some time. I'm gonna be doing a lot of work. But we're gonna be passing our pretzels, and I can't wait to find out to whom. Let me see. Ooh, you know, we have the opportunity to raid into let's see, a couple of our pals. Looks like, ooh, I would love to raid into Percy. What are they doing today? What are they up to? Looks like they're watching something. They're chatting about something. But we're gonna pass our pretzels over to Percyvores. Super, super cute, super funny, super silly. And I'm super excited to pass you guys over their way. All right. We're gonna send our raid message. We're gonna send our love. All right. We're gonna send our bananas and our coconuts and all those things. Um, and yeah, I'm super excited about getting to do these critiques. I really appreciate you guys submitting to them and this VOD will be up on the VOD channel so you can watch it. Where are they from? Australia. Or New Zealand, I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. But that neck of the woods. Here is our raid message. Y'all, pass those pretzels. Oops. I wish that I had actually pressed Control C. Control C, V, 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 V. Please give them all of your love and all of your pretzels. And I'll see you guys soon. I will have a schedule out sometime soon for the next week. But yeah, I'm excited to see you then. And bye bye. Thank you. Thank you.